You don't exist. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look at better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheap again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 13th part of What If Naruto Enters Helluvaboss. Special note, this fanfic is written in the masterpiece of Bones Boy 15 on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Well, isn't this nostalgic? You, me, in a forest. Fighting. Oh, those were such simpler times. Mephistopheles sighed as he faced off against the groggy Duke that stumbled away from his strong landing. The red-headed demon chuckled, and then scowled, a manic gleam in his eyes. So long as you don't put any explosives near my butt, this can remain a cordial reunion, Naruto. You'll have to be a little more F-specific, shithead. He growled as he felt his shoulders pop back into place and his arms snap back in line. I've done it a few times, and you're lacking a good 4 feet of pure butt to be the most recent victim. Ah, yes, my guests and I saw your fight against the champion of Elysium. Quite the display, and a nice homage to that fight of yours against the Hyuga. The elder demon chuckled and clapped his hands, barreling into that monster's chin with an underground uppercut. Well done, bravo. How in the F does he? No, don't get distracted. Naruto snarled and threw a chain at the elder demon. It was backhanded away and a shadowed tendril slapped his wrist. He recoiled with a yelp and then immediately growled. A cyclone of wind built around his hand and he threw it at the mage. I told you to stay the F out of my head, but... In hindsight, that was pretty stupid considering how the ancient demon had beaten B with a wind jutsu. The magic attack was caught and tossed aside, and a good plot of forest was consequently uprooted. F. Naruto would have to devote a platoon of clones to fix that. Stay out of your... What are you even? Oh, yes. Because I can infiltrate your mind and steal your memories. Mephistopheles repeated with finger quotes and a grin before he burst into laughter that went on for a solid minute. He petered out with a sigh and wiped a single tear from his eye. Good times. I remember spreading that rumor. Took 14 years for it to stick, and many nights sleeping in gutters, garbage cans those surprisingly comfortable, by the way, and backyards. Ah, memories anyway, fond recollections aside, I'm glad to see you took my words to heart. Then again, you are the type to find friends and loved ones wherever you go, even in the hearts of your enemies. The green-eyed devil smiled even as Naruto continued to glare at him. No, not ringing any bells. You don't know a goddamn thing about who I am or what I do outside of SHT aired across hell. The fox fiend reluctantly amended. Mephistopheles laughed. Again. He was starting to get irritated and mildly concerned as the older demon continued to smile at him. Fair enough. Fair enough. It was millennia no. Eons ago. Allow me to jog your memory. If love is just a word, then why? A memory from so very long ago flicked into his head. They stood across from each other at a short summit. The daimyo of Wind and Fire requested both boys present to recount the events given their grand and quite massive clash between their respective tenants to determine who was truly at fault, before a new Kage for their respective villages could be picked. Pervy Grandma coached him through the right response, whereas the other boy remained silent. When asked about his state of mind before the invasion, the other boy admitted trouble sleeping and an ease with death. The latter wasn't seen as a problem. The former was addressed by some frog hermit. When asked of his feelings now, the other boy looked down. Shame, I think it's called. Possibly regret. He looked up and sought him out. His mouth twitched up but settled. Then he looked back at the two monetary rulers of the land. But hope. Hope to atone. Hope to live, more than just survive. Maybe, even, one day hope to know love. Pretty words, boy. But they are just words. No real defense can be found with them. The wind daimyo huffed. Cousin, don't listen to this drivel of love. Is there more that you wish to say, Sabaku no Gara? The fire daimyo, as the leader of the wronged village, quieted the other with a raise of his fingers. He steepled them and leaned forward. Tell us, your crimes have been forgiven in our court, as acts made in desperation, and our word has some sway in the Leaf Village. Speak. My father tried to kill me all my life, but he is dead now. I am relieved. Not happy. That was my father's love. Unblinking eyes stared into those of the most powerful man of the Land of Fire. My mother named me Gara, and until recently, I believed it to mean love only myself. She died the day I was born. My life has been forged by love, a word I clearly do not understand, and one that my daimyo doesn't understand. You ungrateful. Quiet. The fire daimyo glared at him from the corner of his eye. He leaned forward again. Continue, young Gara. There is an emptiness, an absence, and I think I am beginning to understand now. Gara swallowed as his head fell. Answer me, daimyo. If love is just a word, then why is it so painful when you realize it isn't there? Is it so painful when you realize it isn't there? Naruto felt himself lose his grasp on his true form as his shoulders slumped. His eyes burned and his nose twitched. There were no sour vibes, no bitter ones, nothing that screamed deceit at him. There was just a pleasantly salty vibe that had a twinge of sweetness to it. He blinked and took a hesitant step forward. Gara, why you're not F with me, right? He swallowed. Is it really you? Mephistopheles' too familiar face made more sense, and the blue markings spread across his skin swirled around his eyes, another layered over a long faded scar, a kanji. Love. It has been a long time, Uzumaki Naruto. He smiled. I've missed you, my friend. Naruto wanted to ask him so many questions. How was he still here? Was there anyone else like them? Did he still have his monster? How long had he been walking around under a different name? Then Thor found them. Thunder rolled and lightning struck. Naruto roared. And the sky went dark. Baby bro, whether you give me a good F or not doesn't matter, because this is not happening. Queen Beelzebub snarled as she stood face to face, practically nose to nose, with her baby bro in her third floor's office study. One of the wings with the least amount of the gratuitous structural damage that her baby bro's clones were in the process of repairing. Ugh, and this stare-off wasn't even happening for a fun reason. Not to mention that she currently had the worst F headache she'd ever had in her life. It was worse than even the bender she had 2,053 years ago. That party was wild as F up until Lucy crashed and killed it by announcing the BRTH of Yeshua. Granted, that headache was because she'd just managed to mend her honey with the strongest F Greek wine available to her. That Dionysus guy sure knew his craft. She needed to get him to face her in a taste-off one day. What? Oh, you're wondering if she'd F the Greek god of partying. Tempting, yeah, but there was no F way B would let any Greek god near her snatch. She knows what happened to the unlucky bastards that got screwed by the Greeks, many of them wound up in pride. Unironically enough, and wanted no F part of it. Her one exception was for her still hot ex-boyfriend, Cerberus, who unfortunately couldn't stay because he had to make sure that Hell's defenses were still strong despite his unexpected 3-day absence wasn't a god, though, so in her mind he was free game. She really hoped they got back to her soon on the bull front. Or was that a hallucination caused by her head injury? What was she complaining about again? While I value your input on the matter, B, it's not your call, baby bro, who had a F shell of bandages wrapped around the entirety of his right arm, snarled back at her as their foreheads butted together. Right, she and baby bro were snarling at each other because he was going to go along with the F Wada's crazy butt plan of. Okay, so B didn't know what the plan was yet, but she knew it was crazy and therefore shouldn't be implemented, especially given it was the F-Wad that had come up with it. You know, the third party in question made itself known, and B glared glowing compounded eyes at Mephistopheles. He was bound to a chair by an almost cartoonish amount of chain, rope, and cloth. Further still, he was confined to the work of carpentry by a circle of salt perfectly poured around his feet by B herself. The ancient demon drummed his fingers on the arms of the chair as he grinned. I could be persuaded to explain my MSTR scheme in more detail. Really? That's great. No, that's cool. Just, remind me about the part where I asked for your opinion, B snarled. She looked around the room before her eyes landed on the surprisingly quiet hellhound that was surfing her phone while lying with her legs draped over the arm of the comfy chair on the other side of the coffee table. She zipped over to hover over the hound. Pretty pup, come on, back me up here. I am not getting involved in this. She deadpanned as her thumb swiped along her screen. B, but baby bro is your mate. You should be 110% with me on this one. B spluttered while her arms gesticulated. Good head or not, she couldn't believe she was still going to trust this selfish PND pup of a hellhound with her problematic, accident-prone baby bro. The sins I twitched when the hellhound started typing something. Aren't you even the slightest bit mad? Glowing red eyes snapped up from the screen of her phone to meet the gluttonous Sin's accusatory gaze. Her device gained a hint of frost around its edges, and the air in front of her mouth took on a drastic chill when she snarled. Yes, B. I am mad. Like you said, Naruto is my mate. My very stupid, very impulsive mate that went and got himself hurt. Again. Baby bro flinched when Pretty Pup shot him a very cold glare. He opened his mouth likely to justifiably cast blame at the F-wad. B totally understood. She'd do the same F thing only for it to snap close when Pretty Pup growled at him with bared teeth. B didn't raise him that well. Props to Pretty Pup for winning the argument with just a look. If Thor bothered to stick around after he F up, B was pretty sure the Pretty Pup would have given his whole Ragnarok prophecy a run for its money. Then those angry red eyes came back to B. However, given that it happened when he stupidly tried to tank the bolt of lightning that came from the actual F Thor, the literal god of F thunder, and frankly, I think that's punishment enough. He only did that because that F-wad pulled him into the line of fire. B protested with a snarl as she glared at the F-wad in question, ignoring the way baby bro's shoulders slumped in relief and the ensuing glare he sent her way. He can defend his own stupidity to his mate. Thank you. Baby bro snapped before he growled into his good hand. No, wait, damn it. Nice. Vortex snorted from where he was double-checking the estimated costs of repairs. Sexy, smart, and he had a strong alcohol tolerance. Throw in his willingness to try new kinks, especially his apparent openness to cuckold life, and B knew she'd really lucked out with him. Oh, PSS off, but... Look, it doesn't matter why he did it. He got himself hurt again, and that's why I'm mad. Pretty Pup snarled over both of them. She turned her gaze back to her phone and growled as she flicked the frost away. She snarled and rubbed her snout before another frosty glower was aimed at B. Listen, I don't give a flying sack of SHT about your who gives a F old beef with Mephistopheles. Am I happy my mate got hurt? No, I'm livid, but he's right. It's not your choice to agree to whatever proposition that F-wad made before Thor zapped them both. It's his. Thank you, Loon. Baby bro winced as he tried to cross his arms smugly. He flinched back when Pretty Pup glared at him again. I never said I was done being mad at you, doof. Nor did I ever say that I wanted you to go through with whatever that SHT heel is proposing. The little beach growled and then pointed at the space in front of her. If you don't want to sleep on the floor tonight, get the F over here, sit the F down and F relax so your F arm can heal. B had never, and she means never, seen baby bro cowed so fast. And she raised the little ingrate. Unbelievable. She almost hated the part of herself that was impressed by Pretty Pup's command over him. But then he sat down right where she pointed and started whining at her. She ignored it. Sly little beach had to have some serious F brass ball hidden somewhere. B would find them during the THRSM tomorrow night. This she swore. And scratched him on his spot? Why was he? Oh, it wasn't a continuous thing. That's cruel. Good punishment. B approved. Wow, you sure know how to pick them, Naruto. The F-wad chuckled before he made eye contact with B again. Queen Beelzebub, I know our last meeting wasn't ideal. Oh, is that what you think about it? B felt her right eye twitch as her claws flexed and her spice increased. She towered over the grinning raccoon-like demon. You broke into my house, creeped on my baby bro during his nap, and shoved some kind of SHT inside of him. I feel like there's a lot to this story that needs to be shared, doof. Pretty Pup deadpanned as she lowered her phone and stopped scratching baby bro's spot to give him another look. Baby bro whined and flopped his chin onto the seat beside Pretty Pup. She growled at him and he shrank back, but whined again as he nosed her hand. Ah, yes. When I understood the complexity of the issue. The F-wad tapped his chin and paced along the room. Wait, where did? How the foo? He was never restrained. B's eye twitched again. He was patronizing her. Again, her teeth ground together. She hated this son of a bitch so much. How did you get out of that salt circle? Vortex asked. The F-wad smirked at her boyfriend and B snarled outright when he gave a smarmy response. I am the Lord of the Shadows. That didn't answer my question. Take the hint, Hellhound, Mephistopheles advised, grinning with all teeth as his eyes flashed gold. You're the most fragile one in the room right now. I would advise caution over false bravado. Hey, D-Cheese, don't threaten my boyfriend, B snapped as she zipped over to get in his face. Huh, did Vortex's vibes dip into a rank set? Nope, she must have imagined it. She returned her attention to the older demon that she barely tolerated the presence of, and he disappeared on her. Where did BSTRD? Naruto, my friend? Perhaps we should table this conversation for another time, HM? Mephistopheles turned his hand over and offered Baby Bro a card that was taken before Baby Bro resumed whining at his mate. B was going to need some time to get used to that. The F-wad looked at his darkened nails. The only time restraint that I had to worry about was on harvesting the other fragments of Cur of the QB's soul. Frankly, it is a miracle that the fragment that was inside of Thor and his hammer lasted for as long as they did. I'll have to experiment with that later. Maybe? Meh, the F-wad shrugged indifferently. Anyway, actually implanting the fragments isn't on a timer. Yet, I think. He'll call you later. Pretty Pup grumbled as she kept glaring at Baby Bro. Finally, she got up and grabbed Baby Bro's collar to pull him with her. B, see you tomorrow. Vortex, eat a pee-pee. You, the F-wad tilted his head, almost expectantly. Pretty Pup growled. F off. Aha, permission to leave. Excellent, just what I needed. The F-wad grinned and dissolved into black particles of sand that flew out the window. Until we meet again, Tilda. Did he just? B's jaw dropped open and she whirled around to chew out Pretty Pup, only to watch Baby Bro's tail disappear around the doorway. Gaba. Wow, she left you speechless. That's a first. Vortex muttered. B slumped onto the floor beside him and he put his arm around her. His lips pressed into her cheek. You hungry, babe? Anything I can get you? Yeah. She rested her head on his shoulder and sighed. Her arms wound around his side and she nuzzled his thick shoulder. No, I just want cuddles. I can do that. He rumbled and pecked her head. They sat in silence for a moment. Hey, B? Yeah? Am I really the most fragile one in the room? She winced. Do you want me to lie to you or be brutally honest? Seriously? He scowled. B grinned up at him. Hey, I still love you, don't I? How am I more fragile than the beach half my age? Babe. B deadpanned at him. Does it really matter? I think I need to go to the gym. If you even think about moving from this spot, I'm eating you. B scowled. It's cuddle time. Threaten me with a good time. Vortex smirked at her. Why don't you save us the trouble and open up? Damn it. She never should have agreed to trying Vor out again. Given the madness of the night before, Luna was half tempted to try and call off the ménage à trois with her mate's sister. Half tempted, but she wasn't suicidal. B would probably snap given the amount of stress she was under. The sin was practically squirting in joy when Luna and Naruto took the bandages off of his formerly charred arm after breakfast that morning. Watching her eat the used bandage was flat out disgusting and almost resulted in Luna rediscovering her breakfast if she tried to deny her twice. So, it was only a hint of reluctance that when she was asked if she had any preferences for the night, she laid down her simple request for the event's start. Naruto was getting sandwiched off the bat. No argument would be brokered. She'd already warned her mate the night before while they were in their mandatory cuddle session after a private but not quiet stress relief in his room. So he'd had plenty of time to mentally prepare himself for the pegging he would get, and no shakes would be shared. It was agreed that the tryst would start with them applying lube to her mate's butt and both ends of her double-sided strap-on. Then, while Luna plowed Naruto's pretty little pucker, he would fill his sister's starving snatch. What? Luna was stressed from the sudden elder devil's appearance after being outed during a party the night before, and she needed to vent the rest of it that didn't come out when she rode her mate's PP like it was a bucking bronco after she dragged him back to his room. Furthermore, when it came time for Naruto to put his stipulations out there, his was simple, but really cruel. B had lost kissing rights for the first round, at least, for both of them. There was a squawk of outrage from the Sin, but Naruto firmly pointed out that he was Luna's mate, and not B's and vice versa, and that his lips were hers and… Then, he added, aside from that small fact, not only was he still miffed at B for her cruel prank, Luna thought she saw a flash of irritation on the Sin's face when he brought it up pulled on his mate, but she also outed their relationship without their consent to an entire party's worth of hounds who would freely post that information, if not sell it to the lowest bidder. That proclamation silenced the Queen of Gluttony's complaints for the most part. B's request was reserved for Luna. She pulled her out of the soundproofed room and explained her want in the hall with the door shut and magically locked. Once the request was said aloud, Luna argued against it and claimed it wouldn't be fair to her mate, that he should get a say in it, that it was a step too far. B dropped the Sin card. Luna tried to protest once more when another request was made. That one was worse. Far, far worse. Too much for Luna to be willing to accept. The argument ended and B's first request was agreed to. She even offered to take the blame for after. When it was over, Luna didn't answer and they walked back into the room. It was decided by both of them when they rejoined Naruto just to get started. So they did. They stripped. B and Luna got a fun brief show from the lone male of the trio, the latter getting a sexy lap dance that she hadn't expected and felt her mood lift. Sweet, sweet, sweet mate before a healthy amount of honey-based lube. Behold, my beloved brainchild, Beal's bum butt cream. Oh, I should mention that it is not edible or meant to be ingested. Vortex was adamant about me telling people that. Was slipped into Naruto's butt. Luna applied lube to her strap-on in a very suggestive manner while the sibling lovers fingered and stroked each other to a readied state. By the time her mate started both F his sister and getting F by Luna, 15 minutes had gone by. That was 30 minutes ago, and now all three of them were on the cusp of completion. In the back of her mind, Luna knew what was going to happen after. She ignored it as best she could and focused on what was happening in front of her. A porno that many in hell would pray to see. F. Yes. Oh, yeah. Stretch in my PP. So good. B whined as Naruto pumped his PP into her cunt. Two of her arms played with her tips while the other set dug into her brother's firm, broad shoulders. He whined with her and panted, his words lost before they could be formed, because of how Luna pumped into his butt with the strap on, which only made his thrusts go deeper into B. Such a good boy. Luna cooed into her sexy mate's left ear her chew toy as she F him with the fires of lust fueled by the stress he caused. She bit down on the rim of the ear and teased the small tufts of fur within with her tongue, while her hips pumped the fake PP into his toned, tight sphincter. The hellhound's arms hugged around him from behind. Her hands splayed over his torso. Her claws kneaded into the fur on his strong chest and traced over his defined abs, all while she delighted in the pleased whines and pants he let out into his sister's face. She pushed her lips to the base of his ear. "Et moi. You're so F good, babe, taking my PP. F your beach of a sister." "Yeah, good, need it harder, Loon," he urged around a whined groan. "Okay, baby?" Luna cooed to him and graced him with another embrace to the back of the ear before she obliged his request and almost regrettably pulled away to put him in the beach position. He, in turn, pulled B's hips with him so that he drilled into her at an angle that made her squeal. Luna's claws squeezed into her mate's tasty cake before she smacked his firm right cheek and pumped into his butt with a little more effort. Her tongue ran over her chops as her fingers lightly toyed with the sensitive joint at the base of his tail. He let out a happy whine and the wriggler threatened to WHP about, if she didn't have a firm grip on it, slipping it into her strap-on in an effort to keep it in check. That's my good mate. My obedient, sexy doof. Take it, babe. Take your mate's PP. F. I feel it, baby bro. I feel your bitch breaker growing outside me. Oh F. SHT. Yes. Ram that F knot into big sis. Gimme it, baby bro. Gimme, gimme, gimme. B begged as she tugged on his torso and hips. Naruto growled and slipped his arms around his sister's back as he pressed himself into her. Luna bit her lip and felt her tail wag as she watched the muscles in her mate's back, hips and glutes flex and tighten around her strap-on, while he tried to oblige his sister's request. Nodding you, B. Nodding. Nodding, he growled into a whine. He couldn't get the full power of his thrusts with her penetrating his butt. Luna knew this, but she wasn't going to pull out unless he asked her to. Her mate, she knew, was stubborn and kept trying for too long until it started to become too much. His happy whines became pained, and as his knot neared full expansion, he caved. Luna. I can't. SHH, it's okay. I'm right here, babe. She raked a clawed hand up his back and slowed to a sedate pace as she leaned forward again. She started to embrace his tense shoulders up to the back of his neck and around his marked cheek. Her claws slipped around him again to play with his ruff and knead the cream-colored patch on his chest. I'm right here, you can do it. Not her. Not your sister. Tie her like you would me, babe. We can let her pretend she's got what I've got, just for tonight. She kissed up from his cheek to her favorite chewable ear and whispered into it. You don't have to be gentle. Yay, yes, please, ram your pee-pee into me, baby bro. Jam me up with that nuot. The sin whined and whimpered as Naruto's thrusts became more urgent, and Luna took that as her cue to speed her own back up. Sure enough, within moments, that telltale sound hit their ears and the mated pair stopped thrusting altogether. Pop. Shinny it, Bee squealed again and wound her limbs around him as he let out a long, drawn-out and relieved groan. Her thinner, longer muzzle peppered Naruto's muzzle with kisses as happy whines left her mouth. Show good, fill me up, baby bro. Yes. Fill big sis effin', SHT. You're so effin' good. Good boy. Luna licked her lips and grabbed his hips. As much as her instincts hated his seed was spilling into what was essentially a toilet wasted. It was still a hot sight all the same. Still, it was time for her role as his mate to really be cemented in Bee's mind. Proof that regardless of how the night continued, Naruto was hers. Her thrusts were rough, rapid and rather undignified, all things considered. It was excusable, though. She had a fake contraption in place of the real genetic thing to work with. Fuck. Luna. Naruto whined her name, not the sin's, hers, his mate's, yes, as his knot, tied in his sister's tight pee-pee, was forced deeper into the squealing queen of gluttony. It was so effin' hot. Luna felt the dam building in her loins, that familiar swell of longing and want for her mate's seed, and beneath it a boiling yearn for his pups. Soon. She bit her lip as her hips clapped against his butt and thighs. So good, so effin' deep, baby bro, my sweet baby bro. Bee whined and nipped his chin. He kept his head up and away, and Luna felt her loins drench as he denied a sin. Bee whimpered and scrambled to scratch his spot, but he snarled and he caught her hands to force them behind her back. His rules were clear at the start, and the fact he was reinforcing them? Luna would have swooned if it wouldn't have stopped the whole event on the spot. Denied once more, Bee whimpered again. No, please baby bro, big sis wants a embrace. Bee needs a baby bro embrace, gimme a embrace, please? Oh, she was begging. Yep, yeah, Her base instincts loved that the lips of Luna's mate hers, were so desired, Queen Beelzebub was begging for him to embrace her. Embrace her, Naruto. Luna groaned as her eyes drifted shut. She felt her own CLMX fast approaching. Having these two siblings underneath her was really doing something for her. Do it. Embrace her like you would me. Not you, he panted. His eyes were darkened by his lust and half-lidded, yet they still somehow locked with Luna's. Not my Lune. Her heart swelled, and she leaned forward to embrace his cheek. The hand on his tail moved up to rub the marks on his face. Her doof, her mate, was so wonderfully loyal. Luna's base instincts were screaming for a boop. This angle would snap his neck though, so she refrained. Also, she was so close, and edging was not allowed tonight. I know, babe, but do it for me. She crooned and scratched his neck as her pelvis slammed into his butt and the wriggler, bound by the strap around her waist, twitched every so often against her CLT. She whined and nipped his ear again. I'm so close, I need to see it. Need to see you pretend. Because you're so good tonight, babe. So good. M'kay. He huffed and pushed himself up. He put a hand on Bee's cheek to steady her. Sibling muzzles met and their tongues dueled. Her mate beat the sin and It was one of the hottest things for Luna to witness. just enough to get her across the finish line. Yes, she groaned as her dam burst, and she collapsed onto her mate's back. A minute of microgasms made her cling to him like a baby koala, before they subsided and she could readjust herself accordingly. She held him tight around his sides, her claws grazing over B's lower arms, before she licked and kissed at his lean shoulders and sculpted back. Good doof. You took it so good, babe. I love you. Et moi, he broke his embrace with B to turn his head and meet her gaze. Post-nut inebriation. He hadn't fallen into that state in a while. Oh you, loon. I love you both. That's in the top 3 for me. B sighed and nuzzled into Naruto's neck on the other side. They basked in the silence of the cuddle pile they'd formed before the sin broke it. Wanna do my butt next, pretty pup? I want my knot back. She mumbled and pressed her lips into her mate's shoulder. Naruto huffed a chuckle as he rumbled while B groaned. Awa, but I wanted to be the sandwich filling next. And I want my own place. You don't always get your way, B. Naruto grumbled. He didn't know how wrong he waited. He wanted what? This was the first time Luna heard about it. Thinking about it, though, sharing a space with her mate, one of their own, away from B, away from Blitzo, a den they could share, a den to raise pups, his pups, their pups. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. If I let you move out, will you two be mine and Texas bulls? Got him it, B. Luna groaned at the same time as her mate, both for completely different reasons. What? Cerberus hasn't gotten back to me and Tex's week pass is ending soon. When it does, he's gonna get locked up for a bit. The Sin licked her lips and met Luna's eyes over Naruto's shoulder. Rotting zombie Christ, I officially know too much about your actual F relationship. Naruto groaned. P&I has worn off. His hand reached back and he stroked Luna's thigh. She growled approvingly into his ear. He rumbled. Loon, if you want me to deflate it all, you need to pull out. No, stay in big sis PP. B whined, half playfully, and winked at the hellhound. Luna growled at her and slipped her fingers down under her strap-on. She tasted at her juices and the lube that was there. It wasn't half bad, nope. Wait, there it is. That familiar fire stronger. Too strong. B, I will bite you. KNKY. She nipped at his chin and he growled at her. Oh, we gonna play rough next? That wasn't a playful growl, B. Luna groaned as she pulled her phallus from his butt. Before it could seal up, 2 black and yellow fingers slipped in. Naruto whined and reflexively humped into the tied Sin. Knowing what happened, Luna smacked the hand fingering his butt and snarled at its owner. That impatient beach, she'd agreed to wait for the F-lube to kick in. B. Sorry, pretty pup. I just couldn't help myself. B giggled and nibbled at her mate's jaw. Then the Sin's long tongue dragged up the underside of his muzzle until her cute nose pressed against his. Luna almost lost her SHT. That was a boop. B was getting a boop from her mate, but felt her hackles relax as B pulled away. Baby bro, you F me so good. Damn it, she wasn't allowed to keep being dirty with her mate in front of her. It was hot. It was too hot. She couldn't breathe, she was too far from her mate. Another was too close. Something was wrong. Luna practically tore off the strap-on and nudged at her mate's shoulder. He pushed himself up, lifted an arm, and B had the F-decency to pull her in underneath him in a side-arm hug. Luna returned the Sin's affectionate gesture for all of 2 seconds, but whined and nosed at her doof's jaw. Her chest was too tight. He was tied in another and not her. It was over. Pretty pup? B's voice dropped. Her nose, not mates, pressed into her cheek. Hey, you okay? No, she whimpered. Her eyes felt like they were gonna burn and her claws sought his face, cheek, neck, anything to get his attention. What the F was this? A whine emitted from her throat and her eyes started to burn. Babe, Naruto, I need. SHH. I'm here, Loon. Right here. He pushed his nose tip to hers. Luna huffed his scent in relief. Violet, coconut and... Honey? No, needs vanilla, not honey, and urgently pushed her lips to his. The embrace was met. He accepted and lost her requested duel. His mouth tasted wrong, his teeth tasted off. Too sweet, too much honey. not enough vanilla or violet or coconut. A softer pop got their attention and B groaned. Oh, SHT, it's like a F in waterfall down there. Hot F, I love having you not me. Baby bro whoa. Pretty pup, chill, B growled at her when Luna practically shoved her aside with a snarl. No no no. Babe, Luna panted as their embrace broke and tugged on his head. The burning was back as soon as B talked about her mate nodding her. She whined and assaulted his face with kisses, biting his jowls with need. Tie me, now now now. Luna, come on, I can't turn it on like a SWCH. F tie me, damn it. Luna nipped along his neck and jaw and whined. Please, please baby, I need you. Need. The burning was too much. This was different than last time. It was too hot. Too hot. Her eyes started to roll up, and the last thing she saw before her vision exploded with endless white was her mate's concerned face. It broke her heart and made it swell all at once. As she succumbed to the orgasmic exhaustion, the rapid bursts put her body in. Luna's mind, heart and soul were focused on her mate. I'm sorry, Naruto. Luna? Naruto shook her shoulder when she suddenly went slack. He scented her neck still sweet vanilla, but a sharp twinge of something vaguely familiar pierced it, and then put his ear to her mouth. Gentle breaths huffed into it, and he pulled back. His hand cupped her face. Luna? Is she okay? I don't know, Naruto whined and sat back on his knees, pulling his mate into his arms and nuzzling her head. He tasted her immediate vibes and flinched back from the strong, unnaturally spicy and sour vibe of lust that wafted off of her. What the foo? B, can you taste that? What? Her honeypot? I mean, F yeah. I'm F down to clean her up if you want to go down on 'em. I'm talking about her vibes, B. Ah. B scratched her cheek. Right, yeah, let me just... She leaned in for a quick taste and immediately shot back with a sneeze and then laughed. Whoa, that's some powerful lust. Like Ozzy after a stage show. Holy SHT. Go pretty pup. No wonder she was getting freaky. B, Luna doesn't get freaky like that. Naruto snarled as he readjusted his mate in his arms. He tucked her head under his chin and tried to rumble, but it kept breaking into a whine. His heart raced and his tail snapped about, agitated while he gently rubbed his chin over her head. You're okay, Loon, right? Please be okay. Hey, calm down, baby bro. Maybe it's just an allergic reaction? B crossed her lower arms between her melons and rubbed her chin with her upper right hand, the arm supported by her adjacent left. I mean, some hounds can't handle the smidge of Feromo in the Beals bum brand. Vortex sure as F couldn't SHT that was a wild night in sloth. It was right before you woke up that week. I'm sorry, you put what in the lube? Naruto bared his teeth as he glared at his sister. Her eyes flicked to his mouth and her FBN vibe spiked along with her own honey-flavored sweet and sour brand of lust. He growled again. B. Ingredients, lube, honey, a bit of cinnamon, some water, a smidge of Feromo like the uncut SHT, not the party-safe stuff, and a pre-mixed lube base from Bell's Chem Lab. B chirped as her oscillating hair and tail seemed to wag. Feromo, are you? His tail cracked the air, and he swallowed back the stream of swears he wanted to shout at his sister. There's Feromo in the lube. Jita, baby bro, I couldn't put poppers in it, not after the last attempt. That mix didn't sell well, so effin' weird. B grumbled and then grinned at him. This one's a top-selling brand, up in lust. Had Ozzy fume pouting for days when I beat out his own line of lube until I reminded him of his cut for being a partial supplier. B. My mate is F unconscious from what I can only assume is some kind of chemically induced overstimulated orgasm. You know that hellhounds can't handle Feromo, SHT. You can barely F handle it. He looked down at his mate who was panting so fast in her sleep. He pressed his nose to hers in a makeshift boop, but without the firm push back. She didn't relax into it. It wasn't a real boop. His ears flattened with his whine before his eyes went back to his sister as a flash of light went off. Her phone was in her hand. Are you F serious? What? You're so F cute with her, baby bro. She licked her lips. Worried and SHT, I'm almost a little effin' envious. She gets all your cutie patity attention now. And me? Big sis has to watch her cute baby bro grow up without her. I'll show you cute. he grumbled as his wriggling and bristled tail flicked around to drape over his NDE mate. There would be no free skin shots for anyone while she was out of it. Why don't you use that phone and call Oz, ask him what we can do. Baby bro. If you won't, I will. Naruto, B cupped his face as she grinned at him. Chill out, alright? Tex did the same effin' thing when we used this brand. She'll be fine. She assured him as she rubbed his cheeks. He glared at her and almost hated the lack of deceptive vibes she had. She was being honest, or at least, as honest as his sister was capable of being. You couldn't lead with that maybe? Oh, come on, how often do I get to pull one over on you? His sin of a sister ghosted her nose over his and continued talking before he could answer. Look at her, baby bro. I mean, pretty pup clearly got the best of it on her end. Are you feeling anything on yours yet? Am I feeling anything? Are you serious? His right eye twitched, and he felt his eyes begin to glow as his earth-shaking growl filled the air. Her buzz started to rise to match it, and her eyes grew compound as she licked her lips again. His lip curled to expose a fang. B, my mate, is unconscious. From micro-orgasms because she wanted you so effin' bad. Semantics, Naruto barked at her. Luna whined and he glanced down at her. He hoped she was just unconscious. Nothing smelt too off with her scent. It was just her vibes that were out of whack. Unnatural. Forced. He was just so pissed at his sister, worried for his mate, and holding his sweet-smelling fertile. Ready loon while she was this out of it, and letting off those artificial vibes was giving his body and a good part of his drugged mind some really dangerous ideas. A thin, gold and black hand suddenly slipped between Luna's curvy hip, his curvy hip. The audacity to wrap around his flaccid PP. The single touch ignited a inferno he hadn't noticed building up in his worry. B had alighted to press into his back and began to rub the same spots his loon did when she him sht. But did getting reamed by his mate feel so good, and his sin of a sister started to slide him back to full mast. Someone smells horny. Her tongue traced his right ear as her purred words pierced the fog of worry, concern, love he had while holding Luna. Let me oblige you, baby bro. I feel so bad for tricking you. B, he growled. He'd caught on to her game. Did you purposefully drag my mate? Maybe I did a little bit. B smirked as she nipped his right ear. Told her not to eat the lube. Should have added not to put it on both ends of her sexy accessory. How does that even? Not important. Stupid. Focus. B, molesting. Luna, unconscious. He shouted at himself, but the raging inferno was taking hold. He growled into a low mum, and B buzzed as she suckled one of the studs in his ear. His teeth grit tight and he fought back the fire in his groin. Cheeky little beach had already been too selfish in our first THRSM, and she should have backed me against that F-wad. This is her punishment for that, baby bro. B grumbled as her FNDLNG became aggressive and her vibes became spicy. He whimpered when her claws scraped his sack and tightened on his PP. That snapped B out of whatever the F mood she was in. Her grip loosened and she pushed her lips to his cheek. Sorry, baby bro. Too rough. B. He rasped as a rumble fought to escape his chest. It succeeded and he struggled to form a furious growl. It tapered into an overheated whine. His BLD boiled and his PP hurt as it revitalized from his sister's hands ministrations. Why you drugged my mate? And you? B chirped and poked his nose like she saw nothing wrong with what she did. SHT, maybe she actually didn't. At the end of the day his sister was a sin of hell, a demonic prince that could literally eat any soul deemed by Lucifer as hers and get away with it. While Naruto might get the pass for his attitude since he was capable of beating her because even civilized demons succumb to the instinctual might makes right programming and all that jazz, Luna didn't have that luxury. Why? The sin tilted his head so he could look her in the eyes, and the feral grin she gave him sent a shiver up his spine. Whether it was one of foreboding or anticipation, he couldn't say for sure, and that terrified him more than he wanted to admit. He gulped audibly when she rubbed her thin muzzle over his to buzz in his ear again. Because I want you to give me a good, strong F. And you won't do that while pretty pup can have a say in things. Yeah, she wasn't wrong there. If Luna had an issue with something, he'd stop. Her enjoyment in this mattered more to him than his. She was his mate. Priority number 1. B kissed him full on and scratched at his jaw, near his spot. He growled at her, then sucked in a sharp breath when her stroking hand coiled around his softened knot. Her bright red eyes met his blue. Listen to me. She will be okay. I promise, all right? I would never lie to you, baby bro. Got me? Right. He looked down at his dozing mate. She shivered in his arms and he rubbed her sides. B squeezed his softened knot again and he hissed. I said I got you. Good. B grinned and her eyes glinted again. She mashed their lips together and forced her tongue into his mouth. The inferno he'd barely managed to ignore erupted, and his mind fogged. Now, lay pretty pup down, fold me in half and F me like you hate me. But I do. She clamped his mouth shut with one hand and smirked at him. I dragged your mate. Well, all right then. His BLD boiled beneath his skin and base instincts roared at him. He laid his mate on the bed, put a pillow under her head, and nuzzled her one more time. He grit his teeth, felt his eyes squeeze shut and pressed his lips to her head before he turned to his awaiting sister. The sin of gluttony, eyes alight with a hungry lust, spread her legs and held her arms out. As Naruto's body indulged B's hunger, his mind, heart and soul was with his slumbering mate. I'm sorry, Luna. An hour after the THRSM started, a single screen in front of 2 sets of eyes lit up. Speakers played, RTC and wild groans and snarls projected. One of the watchers chewed their lip, but the other. Why did I agree to this? Vortex grimaced as he watched a screen that showed him what B called the Naru nap room. The girl mate of the little BSTRD namesake of the room was laid on the side of the bed, her back to the camera and nothing truly exposed. Beside her, however, Vortex watched as his girlfriend's ankles touched the tips of her ears. Normally a sight he always found arsel with, there was conflict as he watched her legs forced back by the fox fiend that was her little brother, while that BSTRD's ungrateful PP pierced his girlfriend's tight cunt. Yeah, ram it in there, ram it in, fu LCK. Her whine cut off as a clawed hand wrapped around her neck and squeezed. Yegsh, hard air. Damn it. He grit his teeth as he felt his PP harden, and one hand reached up to rub his neck. He knew how that felt, how it made him feel powerless, how he could be absolutely crushed. Ugh, it pissed the hound off that he was so aroused by it. SHT, but that little BSTRD had a strong grip. Something rubbed over his tented pants and he sucked in a breath. B boss. Because B wants you to get used to thinking about it. About what you're going to miss out on. The hourglass body of his fellow observer found itself on his lap, and her 2 perfectly plump cheeks sandwiched his growing erkton. Her winged back pressed into his chest, and she started to slide his muzzle. And I'm here to watch another preview. You must NNGH really want HHGH that PP, boss. Vortex groaned, his hand that had rubbed the phantom feeling of being choked, draped over VERYYYY and joined its brother in FNDLNG her melons. Fuller and rounder than B's. But that was almost to be expected by what was considered the peak succubus body type. You have no idea, Tex. The bittersweet chuckle almost turned him off from the whole thing because VERYYYY was more than just his boss, she was his friend, she was pack. She was essentially family and Vortex cared about his family, but then B let out a squeal as she was flipped over and mounted. Oh, that's hot. Do penile ridges actually feel good? He wondered as the PP on the fox fiend just a hair wider than his, but Vortex was pretty sure they matched in length became the camera's focus not for the first time. He wondered why the nap room had such advanced cameras in it. Whatever B got up to there was definitely some hot KNKYSHT before it pressed into his girlfriend's puckered anus. Vortex felt his tongue lull out of his mouth as strong, short thrusts clapped their skin together on screen. His girl's hair was grabbed and pulled while she was pounded into an inverted arch. Yeah, they spread you real good. Want me to demonstrate? VERYYYY asked as her tail slipped under his shirt and slithered over his chest. He growled approvingly and let his eyes drift shut. His girl was whining in so much pleasure. That's it. Shit. All one yeah. Jam that fat F stick in my butt. Baby bro. Yes, yes, yes. And V's butt felt so good over his strong PP. F it. Sure, why not? Red eyes blinked open to a dark room, and the owner sat up with a groan. A hand went to her head, which throbbed like she had a hangover. SHT, it hadn't hurt this bad since her 21st birthday. The memory of that led her to thoughts of her mate, and thoughts of him led to their last interaction before she purposefully dosed on lube, a sentence she'd never thought that she would think, and she searched her surroundings. They were in his room, not the red room, and he wasn't anywhere to be found. Okay, she can fix this. She just had to get a whiff of his scent and Lucifer's halls in pride. What the F was that smell? It smelt like someone's gratuitous sec hole got filled up, corked for a week, and then got shat out. Look, before you start judging, Luna saw a lot of crazy SHT during her time in the orphanage. Not all of it was pretty. That was one pup she almost felt bad for. Almost. Najib Murbra. Covering her nose and wincing from the fast turn of her head, Luna looked to her right and found the very sin she wasn't overly fond of at the moment on the floor. B was bundled up in a bunch of towels so tight that only her face was exposed. She almost looked like a burrito. A B burrito. Well, Naruto did that, no question about it, Luna thought with a deadpan stare. That sort of dumb joke was exactly up his alley. And Blitzo's come to think of it. She suddenly wasn't sure if one hating the other was better or worse than them getting along. That conundrum was blissfully brushed aside when her nose found the awful smell's source. A stinky bee burrito. Why is she? Bee's murmurs stopped when her face screwed up before she sighed, and the stank became even more apparent. So hers were silent, but deadly all the time. Gross. Covering her mouth so as not to retch, Luna rolled the other way and exited the bed she was lying in alone. Alone. The revelation made her pause, but before her still half-asleep subconscious got too far ahead of herself, she saw a sticky note on her mate's pillow. Slept in hammock outside. Sorry, love. She presumed the apology was for the impromptu stink bomb he'd inadvertently left her with. She'd ask why the F he'd think that was okay, but she had a feeling that she already knew the answer. She pulled the note up, and there was a second note beneath the first. Were she not dying from the toxic fumes that wafted from the sin of gluttony's tight butt, Luna would have laughed at it. Do not wake B. The last bit was underlined quite furiously. There had to be a story there. She'd get it from him once she got out of the danger zone. Once she'd gotten out of the room with a parting odorous butt blast from the bundled up and dozing sin. God damn, the gas she was letting out should be a F-war crime. Unholy SHT. Luna was met with a team of opaque face-shielded individuals in white hazmat suits. The suits blocked their sense, but she could tell just by the way they shifted awkwardly around her they were her mate's clones. CHRK boss said to hit the showers before you come find him. One brave fake offered, voice slightly obscured by the protective gear he and the others wore. He turned to his brethren and his shoulders sagged. All right guys, you know how this goes. Move fast. Move quiet. And don't take off your suits until the job is done. This tanks. I can't believe I have to do this because I said I was bored of restoration duties. One of the clones groaned as they started to enter the room. His head shook. We should get more ramen for this SHT. Hey, man, don't drag me down for your F up. I was totally fine with my mopping duty in the East Wing. One argued. A few of the other masked duplicates mumbled and murmured agreement. Luna watched them file off with a snort and then checked her scent with a quick whiff of her forearm. Yep. Naruto had a good point. She should definitely shower first. One slightly painful shower later, the loofah and bath sponges did not get deep enough and Luna was certain she left a few cuts on her body somewhere with how strong her claws scrubbed against her skin, and she was back on the hunt for her mate. Now, she was wearing an appropriated Judas Priest 2008 tour shirt that she snagged from her mate's closet during their first day in gluttony and a pair of fitted shorts underneath it. Without B's unholy gas assaulting her nose, don't think about it too much. You'll retch again. She caught wind of his scent and followed it outside to the tree line. A few rows in and she found her target. Naruto was, as his note said he would be, lying in a hammock, with his tail draped over an edge and dangling down a hair's breadth from the ground. His eyes were closed and his head rested on interlocked hands with his chin tilted up as he basked in the crack of sunlight that filtered down through the trees onto his face and body. His lips were pulled back into that sweet little heart-melting smile of his, and a barely noticeable rumble, almost akin to a purr, was heard if she listened for it. A loose pair of shorts kept him decent and his chain collar was the only thing he wore above the waist. Luna instinctively pulled her phone out and quietly captured a few pictures, but hesitated before she posted it. Should she even share this moment? Any other day of any other prior week, she wouldn't have blinked an eye at the thought. Any picture she had of her boyfriend turned mate was hers to use to brag, hers to lord his status and opinions over the lessers that followed them, hers to flaunt his innate and unintentional aesthetic appeal on social media. But part of her was sick of sharing him already. Their sec videos didn't expose a lot, but enough horny freaks out there had downloaded them to the point that the sin of lust and F. Valentino of the V's had contacted her about protecting her likeness. In case anyone wondered, not that it was any of their F business, she'd agreed to a tentative trial contract with the former. Weakest sin in hell Asmodeus might be, he was still leagues stronger than the sinner from Pride. More recently, however, was what transpired last night. She'd given B her way very reluctantly. She didn't want to miss out a single round, let alone 4 or 5, just so the sin of gluttony could have some alone time with her baby bro. There were better F ways to spend time with a sibling, especially when he had a mate. But the alternative option was worse. She started a low growl just by thinking about it. A PRGNNCY if it was even F possible for the sin to get PRGNNT. Everyone in hell knew how much of an anomaly Princess Morningstar was, and there were many theories on how she came to be was off the F table. That was her stupid sexy mate, and she would be the only beach in all of hell that would have his puppies. If you aren't going to take a picture, then just come join me already. Luna's growl quieted in an instant, and she frowned at his still closed eyes. Wait, what? How the F did he? As if he knew what she was going to ask, he pointed at his nose. You're downwind, Loon. Oh. Her ears turned back as they burned. That was so obvious in hindsight. She slipped her phone into her pocket and crossed her arms over her chest before she walked over to him as his hand went back behind his head. Blue eyes cracked open and his smile seemed to grow a bit wider when they found her looking down at him. Hey. Did you have to leave her in the room with me? Do you want to have this conversation standing up, or do you want to join me? His eyes gained a playful twinkle, and the wriggler flicked up suddenly. Be warned, I am a serial cuddler, and will snatch the nearest pretty girl up to pull into my hammock with me. Don't wag, don't wag, don't wag, swoosh, 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 damn it. Stupid doof and his suave childish charm. Luna narrowed her eyes and huffed before she looked him and his hammock over. How do I ask for help? I was before you interrupt. The sound she elicited when his hands shot out and caught her hips was not a squeak, a yelp or a yip, it was a surprised grunt. On principle, Luna didn't make squeaks, nor did she let out yelps or yips. She did grunt and growl on occasion, and the latter was what she did when she realized she was in the hammock with her mate. Laying on his chest, his firm, toned, scarred chest don't get distracted by the situation. He just manhandled me. Doof, what was? You just had to ask for help, Loon. He grinned at her and his neck craned down to push his nose against hers. Ooh, a morning boop? Yes, yes, yes. Luna was all for that. Her eyes closed and she hummed as she leaned into their unique gesture of unity mate mate mate. Doof doof doof, love love love, and let out a soft minimum of want when his breath warmed her lips. She tried to deepen it, but ultimately whined when he denied her as he pulled away. Her red eyes opened to meet his blues once more. Doof. She frowned as her hands slid up and over his shoulders, loosely wrapping around his neck. His smile dimmed and his claws gently brushed down her back. One hand went back to rest behind his head as he looked up at the sky. I am sorry for the bee burrito. We had to, clean up after I hit her anal G-spot. Luna's tail flicked irritably, and she scowled. Well, that explains why he didn't let her embrace him. He was mad. Her eyes closed and she rested her head on his chest. His heartbeat was steady, calm, her brow furrowed. Are you mad? At B? Furious, he admitted, and his claws paused midway down her back. Not at you, though. You're not mad at me, she would be livid if she was in his place. For going along with B's she did tell you it was, her idea, right? I gathered as much when you two just agreed to jump into it after you both stepped out to freshen up. I mean, I guess I am a little mad. He looked at her DMN his stupid pretty blue eyes. Luna felt her heart clench at the dark emotion that reflected in them. The hurt that was evident for her to see with a frown. You really scared me, Loon. I couldn't get an answer out of you, and your vibes were just gone. Muted. Then B decided to have a effin' laugh about it, before she dropped the bomb about the F-lube, which didn't help at all. I'm sorry. Ugh. Her voice needed to not be so quiet. She was not a weak-willed beach, she was a proud F-hound. Her sweet doof made her so. No, do not cry, don't F-cry. Her eyes burned, and she squeezed her eyes shut. Damn it, no, power through this like the mostly indomitable beach you are, Luna. I F up. I know I F up. She tried to fight back the whimper, to force back the tears. SHT, this F-butt just managed to melt through all of her strong rot walls, didn't he? She blamed his stupid little smile, his cute wriggling tail. Damn it, she had no one to blame but herself. Luna let her guard down and her doof managed to slip his foot in the door. She nuzzled into his chest. And I'm not trying to F and cry my way out of this or some SHT, I just F. God damn it. I tried to talk her out of it, Naruto. I swear I did, I swear, but she pulled the F-sin card and it was either that or she'd want. I couldn't accept it. I couldn't let her have that. I'm so effin' sorry. Loon, no, come on. He hauled himself, and consequently her, up further in the hammock and sat up, not the first time he maneuvered in this thing. Also clearly not the time to make that observation either. Luna to wrap his arms around her. She hugged him back and hid her eyes in his neck, immersed herself in his scent, their scent, vanilla, violet and almost coconut. His chin rested on her head and he rumbled. His thumb rubbed her shoulder. Loon, hey, I don't blame you. I'm a little mad you didn't try to ask me for help. I can handle B's idiosyncrasies. I've been doing it on and off for effin' millennia, and yeah, I'm hurt that you'd be willing to risk hurting yourself before that. That you're okay with scaring me like that. Which is probably how you felt when I got shot, huh? Oh, is that what you're taking from this? Luna groaned. He was a doof. She loved him so much. But at the end of the day, he was a doof. That isn't the same thing. I didn't know what was happening, and I thought you were going into shock or something. He huffed. Okay, so similar. Luna wordlessly conceded to that, but it wasn't the same. He rubbed his muzzle on her head. Look, the point is, my mate conspired with my F-up sister to trick me so she could. What? Get her pipes cleaned? She wanted alone time. Luna grumbled. Naruto's rumble cut, and he pulled back. She looked up at him and sniffed. What? She wanted alone time? We did that last time, and you seemed fine just watching. Consecutive knots, multiple rounds in a row, with my mate? Luna growled and nipped at his neck. He hissed and she licked the spot before nuzzling it again. Sin or not, you're my mate. I let the first round go because I agreed to it before, and because you were stupid and I needed a vent. Reaming my butt is your vent. He snorted. She grumbled and pinched his side. He growled at the act, but it didn't last. Rotten zombie Christ. I never thought I would wind up hearing that from someone, and liking it. The point, doof, she growled, interrupting his musing, is that I didn't trust myself to not do something stupid in the midst of something. B didn't either. So, scaring me was the alternative you two decided on? He deadpanned. I thought I was the idiot in the relationship. You're not, I wasn't. Luna closed her eyes and growled in frustration. Look, it wasn't the best idea, I know, but she's a sin, Naruto, and maybe you're F strong enough to fight that. But I'm just effin' not. Okay, then, let's fix that. Oh, yeah, sure, like it was that F simple. It's not that easy, doof. Luna huffed bitterly. He tilted her head up so she would look him in the eye. A fire lay in his bright eyes, like the distant glow of the sun that stretched across the sky. It was the same fire that was there before his final match in the Elysium fights. The fire he had when he promised her to win. Luna, what was the alternative you wouldn't let happen? Indignant rage, not aimed at him, flared into life. The alternative request played in her head over and over. With each repeat that fire stoked her wrath. Growling, she reached up and cupped his face. Her lips pressed to his, and she forced an embrace on him that he responded to after a moment. "Et moi, ha ha," she panted when they had to separate for air. Her lips curled on her snout and she bared her teeth. First, you are mine. My mate, your pee-pee is mine. Your ball are mine, and your pups will be mine. Agreed? Yes, he growled back at her. She absently heard the wriggler going nuts beneath them, switching through its many sounds. Still, he agreed. Good. She pushed the tip of her nose to his. Boop. They calmed, together, her more so than him. His arsehole was evident as his shorts did little to hide the mass that pressed into her butt. Once they'd calmed, she growled as the request passed through her head again. She wanted you to give her a pup. Naruto closed his eyes and groaned. Not in pain, not in arsehole, but in sheer confusion. I might actually kill my sister. What the F? Yeah, imagine how I felt. Luna deadpanned. He nodded and opened his eyes back up. Okay. I understand why you went with the first request. He cupped her face as she did his. But Loon, you can get strong enough to fight a sin. Doof. Naruto, I'm just a hellhound. So the F what? He snorted and new record. He held another part of her body for more than 10 seconds. This time his hands dropped to her hips as his nose gently brushed against hers. Your talent with magic. I've never seen any hellhound that was as gifted and clever with spells as you are. Do you even use incantations? No, she frowned as he stared at her. Is that bad? No, Loon. Unholy. Yeah, okay. So? He grinned at her as he leaned back. I have a plan. It's vile. You'll hate it and hate me for it. Not exactly selling me on the plan, doof. She deadpanned as her hands dropped to his shoulders. His thumbs were making circles on her hips, and his aforementioned arsehole hadn't exactly gone away. Boot, it'll PSS be off a whole F in lot if we do it. All right, I'm interested. She smirked and leaned into him again. Details? Well, I reconnected with an old friend the other day. You might remember? I think I can see where you're going with this. So, turn his offer back on him for what? Lessons? Yeah, he said with a wince. That might be the part you hate me for. Maybe you'll just have to suffer with me then. You're so effing devious. He growled at her and pushed his nose lightly against her again. She pushed back. Boop. Their lips ghosted a chaste embrace as their tails showed their enthusiasm. Hey, I just had a second great idea. New record. We should date. He waggled his brows and she blinked at him a few times. What the F? Where did that come F? No, she didn't. She didn't. I mean, I know I'm no violet and coconut candy guy, but you are such an butt. Luna growled around a laugh as she pushed him back onto the hammock. He pulled her with him and they laid together once more. His claws drifted up her sides and her breath hitched. Oh, did he want a spot slide off? Challenge accepted, doof. As they started to tease and physically torment each other, the silent agreement passed between them. Words said before, understood, and shared. 3 simple, innocent words that alone meant nothing, but together became one of the most powerful, dangerous, amazing, and deadliest phrases in hell, heaven, and on earth. I love you. 2 blades clashed in a space currently unobserved by the all-knowing. Fallen and heavenly angel alike locked weapons and respected smiles were exchanged. At an unseen signal, the 2 backed away, lowered their blades, and nodded. Like many of their clashes that came before, this one was unanimously deemed to be a draw. The fair-skinned man clad in white chuckled and rested his hands on his upturned blade's pommel. Your eyes appear to have gotten better, Rackwell. So they have, Michael, Sasuke said as he sheathed his sword, and the angelic hand of God did the same with his weapon. The fallen watcher grunted and rubbed his face, blinking furiously. Unfortunately, it isn't finished. The refraction is still off by a millisecond, which is throwing off my reactions. You nearly got me with that disarming flurry. Well, it isn't called the Lord's Last Mercy because it isn't effective. Michael pointed out. Sasuke snorted. Indeed. He lowered his hand to his side and winced when the muscles pulled on another wound. And then there's this. Sasuke gestured at a space over where his kidneys would be, turning to display the spot to his heavenly associate. An illusion of the ugly still red scar on his back, courtesy of the exorcist's spear, appeared. The damage done there was still healing. The resistance he had to heaven's light was the only reason the wound would have never been fatal. An irritant, absolutely. Even a hindrance, perhaps. Fatal, no. Due to it, however, he didn't know where he stood against Naruto. His old friend had not waned in ability or power, that much was sure. But if Mephistopheles was truly seeking him out, Sasuke scowled and dismissed the illusion. If he were to get another victory over me, it could be the last loss. Would it be wrong for me to assume that you mean your rival? Michael's interest had been piqued. Damn it, he said that aloud. Sasuke glowered at his associate. His lip raised just slightly and his wings flared into existence for a moment. The favored son of the Holy Spirit held his hands up. I know. He's yours to fell. Surely a little spar wouldn't do any harm? Absolutely not. Sasuke glared at him and dropped his intimidating gesture. He huffed out and turned away to walk into a crimson gate that opened behind him. I don't need him gleaning observations off of your style he could associate with mine. A bit of warning, Archangel. Quell your competitive nature, lest you fall beside me. He stepped into the gate and scoffed at the parting words Michael called back. Ah, but my friend, in the unlikely event I were to fall, you know you'd catch me. After she dubiously arranged for a small preview of what their relationship might be like for Vortex and for the lucky present VERYYYY if baby bro agreed to be their bull, B woke up wound tight in a bundle of absolutely rank towels on his bedroom floor. That, unfortunately, made sense. Her pheromo-drugged baby bro got a little too grabby during their second dive into anal. If he just hadn't grabbed her scruff, that tight, stupid, sensitive nerve cluster caused her to lose control of her bowels, maybe she could have gotten to the plan part 2 where she and Pretty Pup could have some solo fun. Unfortunately, like she mentioned before, baby bro was a F natural dom when he didn't think too strong about who he was screwing, and thus, B wound up well. She shat all over her plans for the rest of the night, to put it bluntly. Given that it was accompanied by a heavy orgasm. B was lucky baby bro felt generous enough to help her clean up after she pranked him. And then he forced her to hotbox herself. Weird that he had her do so in his room. Maybe that was done out of respect for Vortex? He wasn't in that room, as far as B knew, but baby bro wouldn't have. Anyway, last night ended in a literal shitshow, and the method of how she'd gotten a genuine preview of an angry dom bull baby bro was putting it bluntly, again biting her in the butt. She'd woken up in a makeshift Dutch oven with her own fuel, had to bathe twice to clean it out, then came downstairs for a late brunch with her boyfriend and VERYYYY, the former of whom was sitting on a wound towel of ice. They were staring at who she initially thought was baby bro, until he cut her noogie attempt off with an arm lock. I'm a clone. Don't hurt me. I have a message from boss. She took the message while VERYYYY made her a fresh pot of coffee. Girl had a secret talent or something. Maybe it had to do with her earlier years as a barista. B kind of zoned out during that story. She didn't zone out during this one and crunched through the emptied glass pot once the clone finished talking. Wow. The succubus blinked. How are we supposed to make coffee now? There's spare pots under that cabinet. Vortex supplied with a backwards gesture. You wanna effin' run that by me again? B felt her lip curl as she glared at her baby bro's clone and tossed the cheap butt remains of the coffee pot in her mouth. This one looked exhausted and uninterested in repeating himself. Likely because he'd existed since before the F-wad interrupted her party. Apparently he'd been part of the crew that was cleaning her house before the party and jumped in to join the fight with the F-wad's clones. The same F-wad that gave her a serious concussion. The same F-wad that baby bro and Pretty Pup had apparently decided to go visit. Without telling her first. Yeah, suffice to say B's feelin' just a little spicy right now. F's sake. The clone sighed. Boss and Loon are mad because something about a baby, so they went to see Gaara. Baby? Vortex choked. Baby? VERYYYY's brows shot up. Who the F is Gaara? B snarled. The clone stared at her blankly, one eye blinked, followed by the next. Sometimes she envied her baby bro's ability to sleep wherever the F he wanted. Sometimes she worried he'd just nod off to a nap for another decade or so. Right now, she wasn't in the mood to deal with a sleepy clone she couldn't properly interrogate. She slammed her hand onto the kitchen island. Cheeky little BSTRD, wake up. Huh. Where? Aw, man, I think I was dreaming about ramen. Huh, didn't even know we could dream. Okay, B wasn't one to show sympathy to magical constructs, what with being a literal sin and all, but that was kind of sad. The clone blinked again. Oh, SHT, are we still talking? What'd I say last? Well. VERYYYY popped into a spot beside the clone. She grinned and leaned onto the counter into his space. The original you floundered off with his girlfriend. Mate. B. Vortex and the clone corrected her. She rolled her eyes and waved her hand. Same diff. B made a mental note to address that dismissal later. Her hounds and she herself, as the creator and originator of the species she adored so dearly, took the subject of mates seriously. She never chose one, the closest she'd come to doing so was with Cerberus, but that sort of relationship was just too restrictive for her. Anyway. VERYYYY pressed on and grinned again. You said the original and his beach are mad because of a baby, and went to visit someone named Gara. But they did go visit SHT. That's right, he goes by methamphetamine or something now. So, yeah, they went to visit him and, cool off, I guess? I don't know, it's been a long week. The clone scratched his jaw before his mouth opened. Alwa. B just had flashbacks to her super cuddly baby bro when he was little with that tongue curl. She missed cuddly baby bro and he yawned. Look, B, I've been alive for, like, too long. I'm tired, my head hurts, can we wrap this up so I can go to sleep, or SHT, so I can finally effin' dispel? I can take him back up to his room, the lone succubus in the kitchen offered. It's being fumigated. B shook her head. That squad of clones was adamant about giving the room a day or two to air out, and if she trusted her baby bro's bratty brothers with anything, it was deep cleaning her messes. Why is it? No, not important. I just realized I don't care what he did to his room. V. Vortex deadpanned at his boss. She scowled at him. He rubbed his face. It's not even the real one. If I lie to myself strong enough, maybe I'll get F over it with this stand-in stud. I'd pop if I got another stud in my ear. That's just a waste of money. The clone scratched at the piercing in his ear. Wow, he was really tired. B hasn't ever seen a clone this bad off before. Plausible morals of dubiously screwing baby bros clones aside. They can't finish, by the way. B started to let VERYYYY down, only for the clone to hold a hand up. For the record, we can come. It doesn't do anything, I think. Anyway, Loon just told the clones that time not to, so they popped instead. SHT, are you saying I missed out on a chance for an exclusive baby bro BKK? That's annoying. B clicked her tongue and crossed her arms. She glared at the clone. Baby bro and pretty pup were that pissed about the alternate offer, huh? Alternate offer? Her boyfriend asked while the clone nodded. To get one-on-one time for your preview, Vortex. B explained. He nodded while the clone furrowed his brows in confusion. B decided against spilling those beans and rolled her hand. Pretty pup was being difficult and selfish, huge party foul in any three-way. Unless you're all into it, VERYYYY pointed out. Not a lot of people are, though, myself included, B said with a shrug. So, yeah, I played my sin card to shut down her complaints, but since I'm so nice, I gave her a choice. She could either let me have a few single rounds with him while she enjoyed some supergasms with Pheromo lube. Pharaoh B, got him it, that SHT is dangerous for hounds, Vortex scowled. He was so considerate. B was glad he wasn't letting his slight beef with Pretty Pup get in the way of his concern for her safety. I had it under control, babe, relax. She patted his cheek with a smile, then went back to her summation of her plans for the night. So, yeah, she would sit out for a few hours, baby bro, and I would have some fun on camera for you, and then when the camera went off or she woke up, I'd offer to finish up with her, then call it a night and leave him alone. Or she could let baby bro and I go at it solo until he put a bun in my oven. Whoa! VERYYYY blinked while Vortex slammed his hands on the countertop. What? What? Good F or not, baby bro wasn't going to knock me up in one night, babe. B rolled her eyes as he spluttered. 3 of her 4 hands pointed at her face while the last propped her chin up and she pouted. I'm a sin, remember? The big guy upstairs didn't want us to reproduce so easily. Most of us found alternatives Cerberus, and I made a pact and made hounds while Lucy and Lily went at it mono style for, like, F centuries before Charlie popped out in all her rainbow cheerful glory. Then, where did he come from? VERYYYY pointed at the sleeping clone, whose head slipped out of his hand and slammed into the counter. He went up in smoke and the succubus eye twitched. Damn it. I found his egg. I think we called it an egg, B said, rubbing her chin before she shrugged. Anyway, I found baby bro's egg on a walk a few millennia back. Didn't eat it, put it away for a millennium, found it again, played pretend mom for a century after Garm died, started dating Cerberus, and then my baby bro hatched. Oh, that reminds me. I gotta set up for his birthday party. B zipped off with a grin on her face. So she overstepped with the baby thing, huh? Alright. She'd make up to baby bro with a bitching birthday bash, and Pretty Pup could get her official blessing as his mate. Yeah, if Pretty Pup was still mad at B after that, well, then that was her problem. Can we go back to where you played pretend mom? For a century. Who the F is Garm? Babe? Vortex called after her. She pretended not to hear him as she ducked into her office and began sifting different batches of Beelzejuice around. Thinking about Garm's unnatural death wasn't something B liked to do. So, she didn't. Simple as that. Surprisingly, not far from the Elzebub Manor, another conversation between individuals took place, also, oddly, concerning events that happened the night before. Inside a lavish, if stereotypically expected, smoker's lounge, 3 demons sat, 2 on a love seat together, and 1 in a fine armchair across from them. One of the 2 on the love seat winced suddenly, interrupting the negotiations that were happening. Oh, Naruto put a hand to his head. His eyes scrunched shut as he sorted through events that were suddenly crammed into his head. He whined and his head rolled back as his fingers and claws massaged his temples. I forgot to dispel so many clones last week, one just went up. Oof, been there. Gaara Mephistopheles? Nope, Naruto was going to call him Gaara until corrected gave a sympathetic wince while Luna gave him a look from the corner of her eyes. He lowered his hand to the arm of the love seat and kept the other arm draped over her shoulder. I'll be fine. He smiled at her, but it felt more like a grimace, and worse yet, he failed to fight back a whimper. Nice try, doof. She scooted down and grabbed his collar. In a moment's notice he was on his side, his head on her lap, and oh, yeah. Naruto felt his eyes go half-lidded and his tail wriggled as she began to gently scratch his spot. He started a deep rumble and sniffed in his mate's sweet vanilla and faint violet scent along with her wonderful vibes. A tasty bittersweet mix of concern, security, and joy was used to add flavor to her FBN vibe. That is adorable. Ah, SHT. Gaara was witnessing this F it. He trusted Gaara not to abuse his weakness. Bros don't put bros in blissful numb comfort, and they were both former Jinchuriki, that made them the tightest of bros. He is. Luna's vibes gained a radiant amusement as her tail gave a brief wag before it rested and draped on his shoulder. Her scratch on his spot continued even as she addressed Gaara. So, you're really willing to teach me, us? While it has been some time since I took a student on, let alone 2, I find your drive fascinating. Gaara rubbed his chin as he looked between them. He then smirked. And I owe your mate more than I could ever repay for all he's done for me. Geez, what'd you do, babe? Save his firstborn's life for free or something? His mate asked, still amused. He hadn't had time to give her the rundown of how he and Gaara met. Say it like it's bad. Naruto harumphed around bursts of rumbles. His mate huffed out her cute soft laugh and shifted her hand so that her thumb would keep scratching his spot and the rest of her fingers could tickle his chin. Oh, yes, that's the ticket. His eyes squeezed close and his tail started to really assault the love seat. Doof. Luna's faint whisper was soft enough that he almost missed it. Wait, a thought pierced his foggy mind. Hey Gaara, how's come you look? The same? Naruto struggled to get out as he pointed at his friend. He whined and leaned into Luna's fingers as they shifted tempo and the circling thumb started going counterclockwise. His tongue lolled out and his foot started to kick. Luna. You like that, babe? Feels good. Good. He swallowed at the air when her FBN vibe spiked. He let out another happy whine and felt his head get tilted up. A familiar cool, small black nose pressed into his for a boop. He consciously pushed back as best he could, but thankfully the rest of his mind was also in it for the boops. His subconscious continued the contact as she hummed against him, her vibes much more positive than they had been this morning. Yes, 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 loon, loon, loon. Love, love, love. Oh, yeah. Getting scratches and boops from his mate, his personal angel, with her vibes positive and one of his oldest friends back. Naruto's life was really good. So relaxed as he was, he let himself drift off to sleep. A deep comfortable sleep. A red eye opened in the darkness. A cage rested in front of it. It growled. Again Diamenu, 4th Hokage. The single curse took too much from its dwindled energy reserves and it closed again. Freedom would come eventually. A reluctant Luna pulled away when she felt her mate's breath even out. She slowed her scratches on his neck and spot and started to straighten out the disrupted fur of his coat with her claws. Her wonderful mate was always, albeit unintentionally, at his sweetest when he was sleeping, evident now as he nuzzled her lap and leaned into her touch. Her lips pulled into a small smile. Damn it, you've ruined me, doof. I used to be such a badass. A chuckle reminded her that she wasn't alone with her mate right now, despite their surprisingly comfortable surroundings. She looked up with folded back ears at the elder demon that was watching them with a small smile. She wouldn't lie, now that she had to face down the god of magic on her own, she was a little nervous. The demon before her had beaten B without breaking a sweat right before her eyes. He'll be out for a while, I'll presume, Mephistopheles mused as he leaned back in his seat and steepled his fingers. I can always answer his question at a later date. Now, did you want to know anything else before we finalize our accord? Luna winced and felt more heat fly to her ears. Naruto, that is, called you something other than Mephistopheles, why? Green eyes narrowed slightly and Luna felt the shadows in the room grow, almost ominously. Did he not tell you of his past? Oh, SHT, this isn't a F-ninja thing, is it? She scowled. Mephistopheles' narrowed eyes blinked and his smile grew. A non-believer, he muttered as he brought his fingers to his lips. They tapped, once, twice, and a third time before he let his eyes close and he took a deep breath. Oh, I've always wanted to try my hand at his method. I doubt he'd appreciate a sudden awakening after just drifting off. In respect for him, and because I believe it would break the bro code, I think that it's called I'll skip the part where I beat you with my fists until you lay battered and broken before me. What? Luna gulped. Mephistopheles opened his eyes once more to meet hers. Before our lessons begin, allow me to show you, the time before the rings you know as hell, was hell. It was a land filled with war, chaos, and creatures capable of incredible destruction. A broken chuckle left his lips and the shadows flooded the room. Shinobi we called ourselves, able to mold our life energies to affect the land, create elements, essentially demonic prototypes. There was no light to see him, but Luna felt her mate on her. She gently stroked his fluffy neck in an effort to keep herself calm. The elder demon's features changed, and he shrank into a small, pale, red-headed human boy, no taller than her knee. His clothes warped and shifted so that he wore a baggy atrocity that she immediately wanted to burn. Mephistopheles' voice echoed around her. I knew not of Naruto's life before we met, but I was born to be a prince, of nothing at all. A sandy wasteland swirled into existence and faceless humans know. The faces were there, but blurred, unrecognizable from inattention, started to walk around the boy in a wide berth. I was born to the leader of the village hidden in the sands, Sunagakure no Sato, the third child, the spare to the heir, as it would be known. I had 2 siblings, an elder brother and an elder sister. The boy was worse than the redhead. What the F was wrong with his face? Oh, that was makeup. Why the F did anyone let that child walk around wearing such shoddily done makeup? Luna was so offended, she could not form words even if she wanted to. The girl was cute. For a human, 4 pigtails seemed like an odd choice, but she made it work. We were a team of child soldiers. He paused. He must have noticed the way her BLD froze at the phrase. The orphanage was cruel and didn't stop fights, and hell was a shithole that no one cared about others in but. Even hell didn't force kids or pups to serve in the military. Didn't stop them from enlisting voluntarily either, but it was hell. She gulped and nodded, showing she was ready for the rest. Yes, we attended school for early education, but then we were moved into a life of killing for fortune. For the Kasgage and Land of Wind. Yes, life was grand. If only I could have slept. The darkness swallowed the siblings as the boy clutched his head and dropped to his knees. A large moon cast upon him and his silhouette showed him drop to the ground, unconscious. The sand grew around him, and it grew to monstrous sizes, easily thrice that of bees when she went all out. No, more, and more. A giant, round raccoon with the same blue markings that were on Mephistopheles' skin roared into the night. Many humans died beneath its feet, more still were crushed in its sand. It was metal, but still scary because Luna was not much taller than a human. The monster of sand squashed them like bugs. On the day of my BRTH, my loving father did to me as the fourth Hokage did to Naruto. Only, he was no seal MSTR, nor was he willing to give his life in the effort. I was born premature, my seal was a joke. The strain of the procedure killed my mother. Her last word was my name, Gaara. The space around them rushed away, and the sand monster rampaging in the night was replaced with a crying human boy, a smaller version of the older red-headed boy, easily still in single digits, as he looked up from the corpse of a dead man. My first kill was my uncle, my mother's sister, who attempted to take my life at my father's order. That was the last straw. My mind snapped then, and my demon took advantage of the weak seal to whisper to me. He told me his name, provided me with a facsimile of care in exchange for more BLD. A montage of kills, each more gruesome than the last, flashed before her eyes. It was amazing. What? She was a demon? This SHT was cool. Okay, the whole child soldier thing forced to house a demon the size of a F city wasn't, and Luna wanted to know the F logistics on how that SHT worked, but the murder death kill shots she got to see. F awesome. I was 12 years old when I met Uzumaki Naruto. And reality slammed back in. The burn-it baggy clothed redhead stood across from a blonde boy in a what the F atrocity that was Naruto. That was her mate. He didn't have the same face, didn't have the same body, didn't even have the same scent. But it was Naruto. Luna could tell from how he carried himself, how he shouted in the flash of memories, and from the fire that shone in his bright blue eyes as he stared a half-transformed Gaara down from a tree branch. That, it was all real? Luna whimpered and grabbed for her mate. She found his shoulder and pulled him up into her arms as she watched this immersive recollection. She looked down at him and remembered his story in the Greed Station dive bar. Unholy SHT Luna stroked her mate's cheek as a whine slipped out of her lips. At the time she thought he was exaggerating, trying to garner sympathy so she would forgive him for getting shot. Their hero was dead, people were dead, and the fox was gone. All that remained on a F bloody stone was a crying baby. How F lonely it was to be seen as nothing more than a waste of space and ushered away from others, given rumors and told I was always going to be worthless. No one would ignore me ever again. You weren't lying ever, were you? Luna felt her heart swell as her tail gently wagged. She knew this thing about him that no one else, save the one other that lived it, knew or believed. She had second-hand proof of his honesty. She cupped his head and rubbed her jawline into him, marking him all over. Unaware of what she was learning, he rumbled and pressed into her gesture. Mumnyaloon. Doof. She smiled and gave his cheek one more embrace, and then looked back up to see how this fight went out. His lies are too obvious to be any good, but the truth, as fantastic as it seems, is always strong to swallow. Mephistopheles let a hollow chuckle out. Admittedly, my memory of the fight we had is fragmented. This DMNT soul that was once known as Sabaku no Gaara, forced myself into a slumber as a last-ditch effort to win. The memory you see now is that of the one-tailed tanuki, the mad monk, Shukaku, my other soul half. The scene shifted and there was a giant red toad across from her, a small orange speck atop its dark red body. Sure, why the F not? Luna shook her head and settled into her seat with her mate cuddled into her like he was a stuffed toy. The only thing she was missing now was a latte. She rested her chin on her sleeping mate's head and watched the giant creatures exchange blasts of water and wind the size of buildings and with enough force to change the weather. Think of something with fangs and claws, the toad demanded, with a really F-bassy voice. DMN, that's loud. Ready. Not really. Luna snorted and kissed the base of her chew toy, getting another nonsensical mumble from her mate. Once a doof, always a doof. SHT. Hang on, fangs and claws, fangs and claws, fangs and claws. Henge, a large cloud of smoke obscured the toad and Naruto from view. It spiraled and spread wide as the transformation technique took place. Luna was glad she got an explanation on that during their coffee date, which was almost 2 months ago. Holy F, time flew. It was the last thing Shukaku expected to see when the transformation technique was used. Mephistopheles explained before a massive orange claw burst from the cloud. The body that emerged after it made Luna's eyes widen, and she sank down behind her mate to hug more of him, to cling to him and remind herself he was with her in the shadows. It was the last thing that anyone expected to see. The bane of Konohagakure no Sato, the nine-tailed demon fox. On the day I was born, I don't know why, I don't know how, but a giant nine-tailed demon fox attacked my village. Oh, SHT, Luna gulped. The black rings around the eyes that went well into the ears, the visible dark line on the jowls, and it was still a cute as F-boopable black nose. It was her mate, just fuzzier, and large, massive, even. Damn it, Luna was invested. The nine-tailed demon fox looked like a thinner, larger, baser version of her mate, just with more wiggling tails and longer ears, and that was just an illusion. The actual thing, the ancient monster of a demon, was inside of her mate at the time, waiting for its chance to emerge, its chance to cause more damage, create more chaos. Luna needed to know more about it. It was her mate's life, past, whatever, she had to know. It had been forced on him, drove his life for him, and he looked a little bit like it now. There had to be some major trauma that caused to wake up and discover. He was the mirrored image of the very thing that damned him growing up. But he knows I love his features because it's him though. He knows that, right? Luna nipped his ear and kissed her mate's cheek. She closed her eyes. He knows. I know he knows. I'll make sure he knows. I was awoken when they dropped the technique, after some head trauma ended my own. There was a moment where I saw our descent, but true coherency didn't come back until after we fell. Mephistopheles' words had her open her eyes, and she swallowed a whine at seeing them fall. The ground, from Gaara's perspective, was so far away. Luna herself wasn't a wimp, but SHT, that was so far. There wasn't a hound alive that would survive that. She wasn't even sure Cerberus could tank a fall from that height. I awoke on the ground, and I couldn't move. My sand scattered. My armor ... broken ... my chakra ... depleted ... my body ached. It was unbearable agony, especially for one who'd never been injured before that day. The sky above turned to the sight of a crawling mop of yellow and orange approaching. Gaara's breathing became frantic and Luna pulled her legs onto the couch, arms tight around her sleeping mate's shoulders. It was Naruto. He was still trying to fight. To anyone up high, it was noble. To any hot-blooded warrior, it was impressive. But for her, it was a revelation. Oh, goddammit. You've always been this way. Luna whispered in dawning horror. He wasn't moving his arms or his legs in the memory. His chin and shoulders pulled him along in a slow but determined pace even as BLD poured from his skull. The height of that fall, the fact that he wasn't dead then, and there was Satan's mercy. SHT, it was a effin' miracle he hadn't been paralyzed. Luna whined as she pressed her muzzle to her mate's neck and huffed his scent. He's here, he's fine. He's here, he's fine. He's here, he's fine. It's almost unbearable, isn't it? The pain of being all alone. I know that feeling. I've been there, in that dark and lonely place, but now there are others, other people who mean a lot to me. I care more about them than I do myself, and I won't let anyone hurt them. Her doof's eyes glared into Gaara's, consequently into hers, and that fire she saw, the spark that inspired her, drove her, enticed her. It was still F there. SHT, whatever kick he was on, Luna effin' wanted it. That's why I'll never give up. I will stop you, even if I have to kill you. They saved me from myself. They rescued me from my loneliness. They were the first to accept me as who I am. They're my friends. The words resonated in Gaara. She could tell by how his breathing steadied before his heart raced again. That monologue was the cheesiest F thing she'd ever heard. But F if she didn't feel her eyes get wet. Naruto really understood. Gaara. Her. Countless other hellhounds that were stuck in those shithole orphanages. He got it. If more of her kind could actually get into that mindset. Though that was great, she was really glad her mate wasn't that much of an idealist anymore. If he were, he would have been more broken and up than he already was. And that's coming from a proud hellborn beach. SHT, if he stayed like that, he'd probably even be dead without B. Our paths parted ways before he could make good on his promise. My siblings recovered me, and we retreated. Our attempted invasion was a failure, and so the consequences had to be paid. The shadows filled the room, and the memory of Naruto crawling towards Gaara remained frozen, highlighted by spotlights. Well, it couldn't be said Mephistopheles wasn't theatrical. The demon in question stepped into the light, his frame dwarfed the blonde human, and he knelt beside him. A fond, if small, smile was on his face. This is one of my most cherished memories. I've faced the likes of Lucifer, Michael, forces of heaven and other evils hidden in hell that you couldn't begin to comprehend. But this boy, your mate? He gave me the hardest battle I've had to date. He taught me how to be human, showed me the value of compassion and kindness even in the face of death. It isn't that you have to show your enemies this same kindness, but you must always remember why you fight. That the drive to protect will always match if not overcome the longing to kill. Mephistopheles stood and the shadows bled away. The illusion of the human-like boy that fought tooth and nail faded, and the dim light of the elder demon's smoking room returned. Green eyes leveled on hers, cooling with indifference before hardening with threat. His power flared slightly, and she clutched her mate's body instinctively. Not out of fear, but if she had to move, she wasn't going to leave him in the line of fire. Do you understand the importance of keeping this quiet? What would happen if the nobles of hell learned what he was capable of? What heaven's forces would do if word that a hellborn with a tempered heart existed? War? Civil, between the classes, or a return to a conflict eons long kept cold? It didn't matter what sparked it, but if word got out of what she now knew, it would be war. For all her love of carnage, killing, drags and metal rock, Luna didn't want to go to war. It just wasn't her thing. Yeah, I think I get it. She looked down at her mate. He snorted in his sleep and mumbled incoherently. She smiled softly and nuzzled his face, love, doof, hers, as he pushed back into her with a muted rumble. She looked back up at Mephistopheles as his face became covered in those strange blue marks again, and he returned to his chair. Good. Very good. He steepled his fingers again and closed his eyes. Before we can begin any sort of magical evaluation, you will need a medical examination. Possibly psychological as well. It'd probably be best if both of you got one, actually. Why? She frowned. Mephistopheles smirked at her. Aside from the fact that my lessons will be designed to push you to your limits and then past them. You haven't released Naruto since we started viewing my memories. He's my mate. Luna bared her teeth. So what if she likes cuddling with her mate? That didn't mean she had issues, it just meant she loved him and liked holding him. Right? Great. Now she was doubting SHT she thought she knew. I never said he wasn't, just an observation. Take from that what you want. Mephistopheles glanced at Naruto. As for him, millennia alone doesn't help one's sanity, trust me, I'm a prime example of it. He may not have my physical or mental age, but he is overdue for some kind of help. I'll have to reach out to some contacts in Sloth. Arrange for a private physician, possibly a psychiatrist. Which one has the nice couch? You don't have one on call now? She arched her brow. Luna, I just trounced the sin of gluttony, the Nordic god of thunder and the original hound of Hades without breaking a sweat. I've matched fists with the likes of Lucifer and clashed blades against the right hand of God. He chuckled and then pursed his lips. He played with his lip with one finger. Come to think of it, I was laid out for a month after that last one. I should have hired a personal medical professional a lot sooner. Ah, so there's the downside to nigh immortality. She rolled her eyes and relaxed back on the love seat with her mate in her arms. Fine, I'll do it. Oh, it wasn't in question that you would. Mephistopheles smirked. He stood up and strode from the room. Give me an hour to make arrangements. Enjoy the couch. You'll miss these quiet moments. His chest hurt. Breathing was strong. The water was getting colder. Weird, he wasn't used to it getting colder. Where was he? Something Sasuke. He had to get up. What was He had a hole in his chest. In his lung. In his shoulder. Yeah, that would make moving strong. Damn it. God damn it. His teeth grit and his eyes clenched shut. He couldn't beat him. He couldn't keep his promise. He was. You runt, you really are weak. The deep accusation stung, and he wanted to lash out, shout back, do something to prove the fox wrong. He didn't have time to think of anything, because then everything burned. You better be grateful to me, and your beloved fourth Hokage, who sealed me in a twerp like you. Naruto couldn't respond, because his body was on fire. Too hot. Naruto shot up to his feet with a snarl and his claws lashed out at the air. A strong gale of wind whipped through the room, furniture and niceties demolished as they were flung into the walls by gusts that belonged to a Category 2 hurricane. He returned to his wits with a wince as the last lamp shattered against the stone wall. He looked around and found himself in a somewhat unfamiliar room. Babe? The fox fiend whirled around to find Luna and Gaara standing in the entrance. A sphere of shadows dissipated from around them. Once she was clear to do so, his mate came to him and he met her halfway with a confused but tight embrace. He buried his nose in her hair to inhale her scents and devour her vibes. To ground himself, and then did it several more times as she hugged him back. I'm alive. In hell, but alive. In gluttony, but not B's place. In Mephistopheles Gaara's lair, manor? He took one last breath before he pulled back and met Luna's piercing stare. Her sweet vibes were tinged with a bitter hint of caution and concern. He cupped her jaw in his hand and guided his nose down to meet hers. Boop. I'm all right, he muttered after a minute of silence. Just a bad memory. Ninja thing? She asked. He blinked and sniffed once. Her vibes had a spike in sweetness. Her curiosity was almost too sweet, but the bitter hint of concern tied with it had his brows furrowed. She'd never shown that much genuine curiosity about his ninja past. He glanced at Gaara, who seemed weirdly content with watching them, but he'd always been an oddball. At least he wasn't a total murderous nutjob anymore. Maybe. Yeah, ninja thing. Do you want to talk about it? Flags went up and Naruto looked between his mate and his friend. Both stared back at him, concerned vibes hung in the air from all of them, himself included. Granted, his concern was for his mate's sudden 180 on her stance in regards to his past. Ask me again later, Naruto muttered, too confused by the shift to even think about his dream. Luna frowned and a twinge of sour hurt spoiled the bitter and sweet concern-curiosity combo, but he dashed that away with a small embrace that she melted into before they parted. He pecked her nose, then pulled her close for a hug and nuzzle combo. Later, Loon. I need to wrap my head around it. Fine. SHT, that dry annoyance didn't bode well. She seemed content with the hug, though did she tighten it? Of her own accord? What the F did he miss during his? A soft utterance broke the worried thought, and he relaxed. Love you, doof. Love you, Loon. He returned the words just as softly, and tightened his end of the hug for a moment before they pulled apart. He looked back at the mess he made, and then met Gaara's eyes. His ears flattened, and he scratched the back of his head. Sorry about that. I can clean it up. How long was I asleep? Only an hour, if that. Gaara assured him and glanced at the damage with a smirk. A flick of his wrist and the room was reverted to how it was before, the furniture repaired and back in place as if it weren't touched at all. Okay, Naruto was a bit jealous. He and his clones wasted so much time manually fixing things when they could have been training instead. However, at the same time, there was nothing more satisfying than finishing a strong bit of manual LBR in his eyes. His efforts were always appreciated. It helped him keep an idea of where his body might need more attention, and he liked the praise Bee or whoever hired his services, but it was mostly her would give him for it. Was it a problem that he soaked up praise and positive attention like a starved beast? Probably. Meh, not an issue, so he'd let it go unchecked for now. What spell is that? Luna was equally impressed, apparently. Too advanced for either of you. Gaara chuckled as he stepped forward. He clapped a hand on Naruto's shoulder. Do you remember what was required before return to field duty was approved? Yeah, you had to get psych and medical to sign off on UPP. Naruto groaned and slumped where he stood as his ears flattened again. He glowered and grumbled at the smirking devil. I hate sloths' hospitals. Preach it, babe, Luna grunted. Fret not, old friend. It won't be for another hour. I'm sure you're both hungry. Gaara patted his shoulder and rounded on the spot to leave the room. A gesture to follow had Naruto and his mate do so. Their fingers intertwined and their tails flirted as they walked Gaara's vast hallway, but both kept an ear on their host as he spoke. Thanks to Luna's keen observations, I've recently found value in hiring a personal attendant who has all the qualifications we need. One individual came up, and I think you'll find his demeanor quite refreshing, but I wanted your opinion on it. We were coming back to rouse you and discuss the matter when you awoke. Yeah, again, sorry about that. It is, as the kids say, is no prob, Bob, Gaara said, hand waving dismissively. Oh, no. Luna whined and her ears went flat. Naruto glanced at her as she rubbed her face with one hand. She caught his glance and leaned in. Old. He's old. I don't think anyone's grandparents ever said that. I may be old, but I'm not deaf, Gaara warned. A mad grin flashed over his shoulder. Naruto suddenly had flashbacks to their fight in Konoha. Was his demon loose now? Was it dead like the fox? He needed answers and his green eye flickered into a starred gold. Bear that in mind as your lessons begin. SHT, Luna grimaced. Naruto nodded in agreement. SHT indeed. Dr. Dormier, did you hear anything I said? Yes. Was that all? You're needed now. It can wait. It's a house call. Damn it. Dr. Sumna rubbed his eyes beneath his glasses as he looked at his equal, dozing behind a desk that had several medical journals and files stacked atop it. The only thing he could see were the hoofed feet that poked out from the curtained desk. Really, it was almost infuriating how lazy this physician was. Sumna's own slacking always tripled his work when he felt energized. But somehow this younger physician worked out how to do work in his sleep. Worst of all, he refused to share the secret. I said no. Dormier drawled, voice muffled from the blackout curtains that hid him from view. You really don't have a say in the matter, Dormier. Mephistopheles asked for you specifically. Dr. Sumna crossed his arms and glared enviously at the demon's hooves. The board and Lady Belphegor herself already approved it. Which he knew would happen, like how I know that if I go into his employ, I'll be dragged into some kind of abysmal shenanigans that will be so troublesome and maddening I'll never get any sleep. So, my response stands. The hooves rolled and something under the desk shifted. Did he have more sand under there? No. Did you even look at the request? Sumna sighed. I saw Mephistopheles at the top and decided I needed a nap. Well, he couldn't fault the BSDRD for that. Nobles could be a headache and a half to work with, but elder demons that refused seats at court were a whole different sort of political nightmare. Still, there was a specific message left in the request for the doctor that he was arguing with. Not even for Sumna opened the file in his hand and hummed. Long overdue rematch. Dr. Dormier remained quiet for a long moment, and Sumna wondered if he had actually fallen asleep. The hooves rolled back to imply the doctor was on his back. Then, they pulled in and Dormier groaned as he emerged from beneath the desk. A younger Baphomet with a shorter candle wick at the crown of his head, the black wool he had on his head was pulled back to be tied around it. His horns filed down from where they sprouted because they keep getting in the way of my pillow. At the sides of his forehead, Sumna was surprised to actually see the bearded face of one of the smartest, the absolute strangest, and arguably most sluggish physicians in Sloth. The last time he saw his face was 6-7 years ago, during his student rotation, he believed. Much cleaner shaven face back then. He offered a rematch. The file was taken from Sumna's hoofed hands and he looked it over. His brows furrowed before they shot up. His jaw worked, silent words uttered that Sumna didn't recognize, which honestly said a lot about his declining vision, and he whipped around to a stack on the corner of his desk. A jerk pulled a thick file out from the middle of the pile. How it didn't topple, Sumna couldn't say. Dormier flipped through the new file, muttering in a language that Sumna didn't recognize, before he stopped, closed the file and rammed it up into his face with a groan. That's why, problematic, hyperactive little son of a bitch, that's why we couldn't find your body. He grumbled. Find who? Can't talk, Sumna, have to catch the next train to gluttony. Dormier tucked the file in his hands under his arm and snagged a fresh, smaller one from the top of another stack. Then the request from Mephistopheles joined the last two. Dormir ducked under his desk and came out with a mesh-filled pillow. He flipped it over and oh, it had straps on it. It was a pillow-like case. Smart and practical. The young Baphomet shot off like a gray stag that caught whiff of a fresh carcass. Dormir shouted Somna didn't even know he was capable of raising his voice over his shoulder before he rounded a bend. Talk to Bliss if you want to know more about any of the patients you're taking over. Wait, I'm what? Somna blanched once the word sank in. He never agreed to that. He pulled his handy-dandy PDA out and SHT. That's a lot of emails. How many patients did Dormir have? Somna slowly looked up at the desk and his withered bones groaned in agony. How did convincing his colleague into getting off his butt turn into this? A fresh email from one of his friends from the board. It had only one word in it, sorry. Oh, those sly old codgers wanted him to retire already. Think they'll scare him out of his pension, do they? Not on Somna's watch. He'd show them just which codger was the most stubborn. He'd face down angry sins and unruly pups. A little bit of extra work wouldn't do him in. Dr. Somna? A nurse poked her head around the corner. Your wife is on the phone. Right, the work will not do him in. But his wife's reaction to him spending more time on it might. When the Baphomet doctor that Mephistopheles hired showed up, she was relieved to see it wasn't the same physician that drugged her up after her and her doof's first date. Naruto started to act a little weirder than usual as soon as the doctor, Dormir, and Mephistopheles started talking, but ultimately behaved himself during her physical. A few growls here or there, but nothing a quick boop didn't nip in the bud. Needless to say, she passed her medical eval with flying colors. When it came time for her psyche eval, the doctor looked at his clipboard. Do you feel the immediate need to RPE someone? What? No. Great. Are you currently on drags? Unfortunately, no. Cool. Are you allergic to shellfish? What the F? No. Luna scowled and crossed her arms as she looked at her mate from where he leaned on the wall nearby. He had a smirk on his face as he watched the Baphomet, then caught her eye and shrugged. Useful doof, thanks for the insight. She glared back at the Baphomet. Are these questions seriously important? We're in hell. These are the mandatory psyche questions. Dormir deadpanned. He flipped the page up. If the A train leaves the station at 3 o'clock heading west and the B train leaves the tunnel at 4:15, what time does Lululand's main park close? Are we done here? Luna growled. A scholar she was not nor ever claimed to be, but she knew bullshit questions when she heard them. She was not answering that stupid butt question on principle. Quick psyche summary. You're temperamental, so try not to get goaded easily in a fight. And I would guess being recently mated you're on the verge of a heat cycle, if not in one already. Try to use precautions before you have sex unless you're actively trying to reproduce. Dr. Dormir drawled as he closed his clipboard and looked her in the eye. You're cleared to go get tortured. You mean trained? Luna narrowed her eyes. He shrugged. I said what I said. Luna bared her teeth and growled at him, but he merely blinked again. Slowly, almost as if he was on the verge of falling asleep. Her growl dwindled as violet and coconut wafted into her nose and her mate's arm draped over her shoulders. She looked up and found Naruto smiling at her. Why don't you and Gaara get started on some lessons? He suggested. He sighed and his ears went flat as he stared at Dr. Dormir, who watched them both with half-lidded bored eyes. Her mate looked back at her with a smile that looked more than a little forced. I get the feeling that I'm going to be here for a minute. You sure? Luna frowned. According to his file, it's been 33 years and 7 months since his last appointment, the doctor deadpanned. He let out an exhausted groan and rubbed his neck. It's HT. He's probably not wrong. I need a drag. 33? Right, the hibernation thing. Luna frowned and looked at her mate. That's not going to happen again, is it? His hesitation said more than any words could. She felt a slight bristle form along her arms and tail. He can't do that to her. If he slipped into a friggin' coma before she had a single pup SHT, if he did that when she had a pup. That's part of why I'm here. Dr. Dormir crossed his arms. I've got specialized training in regards to lethargically induced medical issues. It's a pain, but mandatory in sloth. From the notes I've read, it seems to be an entirely physical issue. but the rest of the notes are redacted. Bell suggested it was some kind of safety measure. Naruto rolled his clawed hand. The more my power grew, the less my body could handle it, so to compensate I went into a form of stasis until I could adapt to it. As I got older, it started to diminish until about 10 years ago, where my shortest nap ended after a quarter century. But it won't happen again, right? Luna reiterated. Her mate swallowed and gave her a weak smile. I hope not. That's not reassuring at all. I know. He leaned in and pushed his nose to hers, and she basked in the calming serenity of the boop. His lips pressed into hers in a quick embrace before they pulled away. I'll be fine. Go have some fun and destroy something we won't be liable for. Fine. She cradled his head in her claws and took another embrace before she stepped out of the room Mephistopheles gave to them for their evaluations. The elder demon in question was meditating across from the door, a tiny pillar of shadow holding him upright. All set? The demon asked, not bothering to open his eyes. Luna crossed her arms as her tail flicked. Yeah, I'm F-cleared or whatever. Excellent. He stood from his non-seated, semi-seated, whatever, it didn't matter his meditative pose and grinned at her. That means you and I can begin post-haste. He snapped his fingers and an orb of shadows swallowed them up before it opened again, a literal second later. Where they once were in a lavish, if gothic hallway, now they were in a grimy, stone-walled dungeon lit by torches. Luna sniffed and grimaced. Why does it smell like lemons down here? Because I cleaned the bloodstains with a concoction made of bleach and Lukefier's pledge. You clean the bloodstains? She frowned. Most Hellborn, herself included, wouldn't bother. BLD was just a natural color at this point. Of course, Hell is more likely to aid you in your magecraft if you treat it well. Remember that. Mephistopheles chuckled to himself as his hands folded behind him. Believe you me, I wish I'd learned that a long time ago. So many rituals would have gone much smoother. That's enough reminiscing. Show me what you can do. Like you don't already know? Luna scoffed. I do, but knowing and seeing are two different things. The elder demon raised his left hand and beckoned her with a grin. Show me what you've got, Poochie. Yep. Luna felt her lip twitch with a snarl and pulled upon the familiar yet cold embrace of her magic. Her claws froze over, extended, and she crouched low. Her eyes narrowed as she bared her teeth. Somewhere in the back of her mind, she knew that this wasn't going to end well. But she'll be F-blessed in heaven before she would let that dig slide. She launched herself forward with the intent to rip and tear apart her teacher. It went about as well as she expected. To be absolutely redundant for the sake of it, life in hell not living. We're talking about life was never a simple thing. For example, whereas the lesser demons, imps and hellhounds aged and died as mortals did. But unlike mortals of Yahweh's design, their essence upon passing is reabsorbed into hell, to be recycled and reused in a dark form of reincarnation. Mortals that became sinners were basically granted immortality. They were impossible to kill, outside of the use of angelic weaponry, which gave them the most dangerous thing a demon could ask for, potential. In theory, sinners could reach a high enough potential to eventually outclass or even overpower the sin that rules them. In theory, this could happen. Practically speaking, the apocalypse will have started, ended, and started again before that happened. Why was this being explained? Well, to be redundant for the sake of redundancy, of course, to emphasize just how not simple life in hell was. It operated under rules that most inhabitants couldn't explain. How else would you explain that mortals could become nigh immortals upon their deaths, and demons were reincarnated after being absorbed by hell when they died? You can't. Some things just have to be accepted at face value. No, I don't buy it. How the F are you a demon? Naruto deadpanned with a scowl as he pointed at Dr. Dormier. This is another one of your stupid too lazy to break down how smart I am for you ploys, and I'm not falling for it. TCH, still a stubborn BSTRD, that could have been the one thing that F changed. Dormier, aka Shikamaru, clicked his tongue and glared back at the fox fiend. Listen, the long answer is too troublesome to get into. Short answer, God did it. Nope, still not buying it. Naruto crossed his arms. He totally bought it, but he hadn't had someone sane to mess with in a long time. Not to mention Shikamaru was an old friend, And outside of fighting his old friends as he had with Gaara and Sasuke, pranking them did wonders for his black heart. Me and Gaara make sense, we had demons inside of us. You? Shikamaru, did you ever actually kill anyone? There's no right answer to that question, and the fact that I have to say that makes me question both my sanity and my morality. Just admit that you don't know how you wound up here. Fine, Naruto. Shikamaru covered his eyes and Naruto let a quick grin cover his face before he schooled himself again. I don't know. You effin' liar, Naruto accused with squinted eyes and fought back a smile as he did. He saw a vein protrude on Shikamaru's head and almost let a snort loose. This was great. He was having a blast and kept it up for a good while, until finally a giggle broke through and Shikamaru caught onto his game. Enough. Shikamaru slammed a hoof onto the desk beside him and the small flame on his candle erupted into a blaze. So surprised by the display, Naruto let his mouth shut with a click. He didn't even know Baphomets could do that. Talk about cool. The incensed sloth demon huffed and rubbed his face. Naruto, let's move past the F bullshit already. Please, I can't F deal with that right now. I'm wasting too much F time indulging you as I am. Alright, fine. Killjoy. The fox fiend spat with a mock pout before he leaned back on the dry sink that was behind him and gave the irate Baphomet. It really is good to see you again, Shika. Even if it's in furry form. Yeah, back at you, even though you're a bigger pain in my butt now. Shikamaru huffed as he pulled a packet of cigarettes out and lit one with a wick on his head. He took a drag and then Mock glared at him. Troublesome blonde. How could you even say that to me, dude? Naruto raked his claws through the hair on his head. Does this look blonde to you? Bits and pieces are, it still counts. Shikamaru huffed and rubbed his face. There's no point in putting this off. He grabbed a different clipboard and clicked his pen. Be honest with me, how long have you been awake? Today or in general? Naruto tilted his head. Because I took a nap earlier and had a weird dream. Might have been because I woke up in the middle of the night to my sister's gasso. Hey, Shikamaru, guess what? I have a sister now. The sin of gluttony. Yes, I'm up to speed. Try to focus, Naruto. Shikamaru sighed as he tapped his pen on the clipboard. Let me rephrase. How long did it take you to remember everything about the elemental nations? Not long. Naruto frowned. Really scared the CRP out of me when I was waking up. It all came to a head at about 8, 9-ish. I'm still fuzzy on a few things. Sounds about right. Shikamaru nodded as he scribbled something on his chart. You'd have been mentally alive for longer than this version of hell existed, even if in stasis for most of it. Shinobi and human minds have to protect themselves or they break, and then we're no better than F-sinners. Not a fan. I met a few old friends that were lucky enough to reincarnate as humans rather than demons like us. Shikamaru frowned and held a hand up. Not Ino or Choji. I'm still looking for them and keeping an eye out, but work keeps me busy. Who? There's one guy. Hidden worked with the Aka right. You were dead. You didn't know? Shikamaru sighed and rubbed his face. Alright, long story short, some guy gathered a bunch of S-class criminals to take the Biju from the villages and start a new war. He made an entire mercenary group to do it. They were called the Akatsuki. Naruto frowned. I remember. Sasuke's brother was with them. Sasuke's brother infiltrated them. Naruto cut himself off and growled as he rubbed his temples. Of course they didn't have the full F picture. When did Shinobi ever get the full picture until after bodies were laid out around them? He took a deep breath and then looked up to meet Shikamaru's passive gaze. Gimme the footnotes. Shikamaru, how bad was it? Bad. You're not going to like this, and it doesn't really change anything. Tell me. Shikamaru leveled him with a heavy stare and Naruto bared his teeth. Just tell me, damn it. All right, he sighed. He then proceeded to tell Naruto of what he knew about the Valley of the End. The more he heard, the darker Naruto's visage became. Nigh immortals that broke what little fabric of balance existed for Shinobi came and carved a path of destruction through the villages. It started at the Valley of the End. With Kakashi-sensei dying for the BSTRD because a mutated plant had some kind of FMSTR plan, he inadvertently F up by killing the QB not Naruto. because who gave it SHT about the fox's vessel when the fox itself was the prize? And Orochimaru came back no less than 3 times. That was just what Shikamaru knew and remembered. It made his BLD boil. His soul seethed and his black heart, still ever that of the very same hyperactive blonde boy who loved his home and friends so much he ran off to die, for it ached for the family he'd lost. He braced himself on the nearest chair and shakily sat down. He rested his elbows on his knees and took a shuddering breath. "That's everything you know?" he asked, voice hoarse and mouth set in a scowl. He had to clench and unclench his fists to rein his mounting temper in. "That's it." Shikamaru leaned on the wall beside him and took a drag of his cigarette before he held it out to him. Naruto eyed it and took the offered stick. He made a drag of his own and reflexively swallowed the smoke before it could escape his mouth. The burp that followed was spicy and tasted highly of tar and addiction. His friend smirked. "I take it you're not a smoker." "I prefer getting high on life," Naruto joked as he handed the cigarette back. "A trick that B taught me when I showed an appetite for it." "You mean aptitude." Shikamaru corrected him before he took another drag. The fox fiend smirked. "I said what I said." "Smartass. First time for everything. Tisk. And here I thought you were actually on the verge of growing up. PSS off, you lazy BSTRD." Naruto huffed around a smirk before the two went quiet. A healthy silence stood between the two friends for a good moment. He was content with it to a point. He wasn't one to enjoy a silent presence. Aside from mandatory cuddle time with Luna, where she'd either bask with him in their combined scent or scroll through her Voxdissense thing and let him peek in on it. "I really shouldn't meh," Naruto thought before he perched his cheek on a fist and grinned at Shikamaru. "So, is the next part where I drop tro and bend over while you pull a glove on? Because Luna needs to be present for my first FSTNG session, or I'll never hear the end of it." "I officially know 2F much about your sec life from that statement alone. Belfegor, dammit, you're such a pain." Naruto burst into laughter at the curse the Baphomet uttered his way. He only noticed that a dark glint entered Shikamaru's eyes when the ram-like demon went over to his medical case. "You know, Naruto," he said, "it's been 33 years since you last got vaccinated." "Okay, what's your point?" Naruto narrowed his eyes. He didn't like the sudden dry amusement and spicy vindication that overtook the Baphomet's vibes. He tensed when Shikamaru stood up and kept his hands behind him. His eyes darted down to the open bag and then back up to the hidden hands. His ears folded back and his lip curled as his grip tightened on the armrests of the chair he collapsed in. "The vaccine should be good for 50 years. I've got at least 10 good years left. The vaccines you have gotten are outdated. You should have gotten new ones when you took the Hellhound in. Maybe you could have bribed your way out of getting them then." Shikamaru smirked and pulled a syringe out from behind him in each hand. Naruto hyper-focused on them and his tail curled at his feet. "You vindictive son of a bitch," he breathed as he shot up from his seat and put himself on the far wall. "This can't be for the little back and forth earlier. That was just some harmless messing around, you know? A prank, man, just a prank." "Oh, I know. No, it's not about that. Do you know how much paperwork your death on that stupid rescue mission cost me? This isn't revenge, Naruto. It's justice. Justice that, like your vaccinations, is long overdue." Shikamaru suddenly seemed to loom over the fox fiend with how ominous his features became clouded in shadow and surrounded by a rising aura of demonic power. He dropped his clipboard and flicked more syringes into his hoof-like hands. His arms crossed in front of him and his eyes were bright white voids. "Now, be a good little shinobi and come take your medicine." Rationally, Naruto knew it would be easier if he just went with it. Rationally, he knew he could get to training if he just got the shots now. Rationally, he knew Shikamaru, and Gaara by proxy, had his best interests in mind. That all entirely depended on Naruto being a rational, non-canon-based demon. That said, his reaction was understandable. "You'll never take me alive." "Is it a good idea to leave them alone like that?" Luna asked as she heard a muffled crash from upstairs. She took a right hook to the jaw and spun around to catch herself on a patch of loosely formed snow. Not a thick enough layer, it'd still hurt when she hit the cobblestone floor. She swallowed back a whimper and growled at the smirking devil across from her. "I'm sure Naruto will be fine. He's bounced back from worse. He waved off her concern and pointed at her. The tip of his finger crackled. You should be more concerned with yourself. I don't like how confident you are that he's the one in trouble. Luna growled as she jumped over several bolts of electricity, not lightning. She'd been forced to learn that the natural phenomena was just one aspect of electricity, rather than the inverse she'd thought it was, and swung a claw of ice at the devil when she closed in. He phased away and reappeared at the other end of the hall. He's your mate, Luna. What do you think? I think I should have thrown an ice spear at your head when I had the chance instead of asking the question that started this. Luna grumbled as she did just that, only for the elder demon to catch the spear in question and shatter it in his grasp. Oh, good. You are learning. Let the lessons continue then. Lesson number 2. Mephistopheles faded from view and reappeared with a fist millimeters from her face. Dodge. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for more crossovers and adaptations. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author BonesBoy15 on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.